we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll begin, as usual, with public audience.
Oh my gosh. Oh. She has a Foot Locker of snacks over here.
I didn't know how late we'd go.
Just pills.
Of course. All right, the floor is yours.
For over a year, I've come before the Board of Selectmen with my concerns about the violations of my request for information through Freedom of Information Act. My first request is still to be resolved from the beginning of 2019 and other requests to the present. Town Attorney Bob DiCrescenzo tried to resolve the matter, but to date I have not received most of my requests, although many are complete and should be available immediately. My complaint with Freedom of Information Commission is still pending. My outstanding requests are October 31st, 2019, separation letters from full-time employees. Many are still pending. December 11, 2019, I requested the letter received from Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities and the town's response regarding Gertrude Ducey's termination, partial request. October 15, 2019, cost of transcript from Brandon Legal Services from Sergeant Trumley's hearing. January 6, 2020, police IA investigation of police officers vandalized locker. January 21st, 2020, Janelle Mullins personnel file. February 2nd, 2020, police IA investigation shotgun incident. February 20th, 2020, police investigation of Sergeant Corcoran relating to Mark Rustick, building superintendent. February 20th, 2020, police IA investigation of Officer Trevor Frittle's salary dispute. March 2nd, 2020, emails to and from Town Manager Maria Caprioli, heads of department and town and labor attorneys. As you enter the town manager's office, there is a receptacle with pamphlets giving highlights of the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act. Under public records, it states, quote, "You may inspect public records during regular office hours, but copies, printouts, or transcripts should be requested in writing," end quote. Town Manager Maria Capriola has insisted that all requests must be made in writing in violation of the Freedom of Information Act. I would assume that Chief Bolter's discipline log would have truthful information. However, number 5 on the log has Officer Devon being disciplined for training on 2/12/2009, listing her married name, although she didn't get married until 2011. How many other inconsistencies are there in this log? The labor attorney logs that I received had most information redacted. The labor attorney, according to town records, has received over $100,000 without the charges for 2 labor meetings with the police union and town union. Both meetings were from about 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., 16 hours of meeting at $274 an hour. This does not include travel time and preparation, around $5,000 additional dollars for non-appropriated funding coming from the general fund. Both of these union meetings have been continued. The police union will have met on Monday, March 9, 2020, and will eventually vote to return Sergeant Trumley to work. At that time, the police commission in town should evaluate the abuse of power of Chief Bolter and the termination of Sergeant Trumley and the costs associated with this frivolous termination. The town union meeting will be continued in April, with the union voting that Robin Newton's dismissal was an abuse of power and she will return to work. Robin Newton fulfilled all the conditions of her probation and was an exemplary employee and never should have been terminated. It appears that the Board of Selectmen is not interested in any of the oversight of Town Manager Maria Caprioli's conduct and continues to embrace her management style with excellent evaluations and increases in salary, although she abused her power. Does the Board of Selectmen believe that ignoring the public's and employees' demand for oversight of Town Manager Maria Caprioli's conduct will hinder their chances for re-election? With over 50 town meetings, it appears that many of the minutes of the meetings are not filed in a timely manner. According to the Freedom of Information, quote, "Agency minutes and records of votes must be available to the public," end quote. The minutes of each agency meeting must be available to the public within 7 days of the session. Many of the meeting minutes are not available for months on the town's website. This is a violation of the Freedom of Information Act. As a professional town manager, Maria Caprioli should not continually ignore state statutes that are in place for government transparency. The grand list increased 2.66% due to increased buildings and property taxes. The increase in the grand list should be used to reduce the mill rate and not increase spending. With the glut of apartments on the market, the demand will decrease and many of the developers will either sell their property or will have lower the rents to sustain the developments. This will lead to migration from other towns and lowered assessments due to lower market values. As the Town and Board of Education goes through the budget process, the Board of Finance should be mindful of the financial pressures on the taxpayers to support their budgets and the state's financial stability. All of my comments will be posted on Simsbury Patch, Twitter at Joan Co., and Newsfeed on Facebook. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Joan. Sure. Anybody else for public audience? Yes, Diane.
Diane Nash, 5 Marywood. This is not on tonight's agenda, but it is soon to come before this board and to the public for a hearing. It's the possible sale of an open space piece of property. It's a convoluted proposal because of the backstory to this transaction that may not be included in the hearing information. It was articulated in this board sessions, but from what I heard about the forward of the proposal, it's not, the backstory is not even in the proposal for the sale of open space. So I wanted to alert all of our homeowners, our property owners, who are concerned with open space and the preservation of the open space. It's a convenient solution with very inconvenient repercussions. It's going to be very easy to sully a reputation of one of the contributors to the town of Simsbury. Excuse me. A landowner who has served on the land use boards. If we mishandle the purchase and sale or swap of a piece of property of open space to gain something else we want. The expedient solution to the extension of the bike path may well lead to this, because we will develop a mistrust to the people who serve on our land boards, a mistrust of our staff, that they take an easy solution to by just flipping a property because the same owner, homeowner, landowner happens to own or lives adjacent to this parcel. The facts are the bike path can be extended without taking any private property. It's not an ideal solution, and the ideal solution would be to gain an easement on the property in front of the Old Well restaurant. The property has a facility on it that will be enhanced by having the bike trail junction there. This property is also owned by a landowner who has a piece of property of open space behind him. The piece of property behind him has been used improperly, and the town knows it's being used improperly and unlawfully because they have animals on this piece of open space. What is being proposed is the sale of this property to this homeowner that would sort of reward him for the misuse of the property. If I understand the way the referral from the board to this board and the public hearing, nowhere does it give the quid pro quo of the exchange of property. Nowhere have I heard publicly, and maybe when you met privately in executive session, you talked about what price have you put on this parcel of open space? What price have they put on the easement for the property to extend the bike trail? All of these questions need to be asked, need to be brought to the public. And there, I had in a letter to you some suggestions that could possibly, much more easily, and much more acceptable to the public, that don't have ramifications for how this could be handled. But since I was shut off last time, that's all I'll read.
Diane, thank you very much for taking the time to be here tonight. Would anyone else like to speak in public audience tonight?
Susan, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening about disability access to the Performing Arts Center parking lot and meadow. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Shannon Nall, and I'm speaking to you tonight as a member of Simsbury's Aging and Disability Commission, the mother of a child with a disability, and a passionate advocate for disability rights. It is my understanding that there is a proposal for a study to examine the aforementioned issues at the PAC in the upcoming year, with funding allocated in the capital plan for 3 years out. Last summer, several PAC patrons were stuck in mud and wet grass in their wheelchairs, in the rain on the field. Every Simsbury High School graduation, a family member, relative, or guest cannot witness their loved one graduate because they are physically disabled and cannot safely negotiate the parking lot or access the field. So my questions are as follows. While the study is completed, what is the interim plan? What will be done to address accessibility to the PAC and to prevent scenarios which include patrons being stuck in wheelchairs in the rain? Do we continue to invite the public to our community and ignore these issues while hoping for the best? Can members of the Aging and Disability Commission be involved in this study? There are temporary solutions that can help. For instance, there are mats that are used on beaches that are rolled out for wheelchair access. Has the town investigated utilizing any of those as in the interim? Budgets are a reflection of our community's values. Delaying funding to allow access to the PAC excludes people. And I know that Simsbury is not about exclusion. I'm certain the board's intent is not to be exclusionary, but failure to implement immediate actions leads to that end. I urge you to further examine this issue and understand the urgency involved and act accordingly. I encourage you to work side by side with the disabled, seniors, disability advocates, and the Aging and Disability Commission to address these concerns, because I know we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shannon.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Susan.
Good evening, Susan Messino, 41 Madison Lane. I'm always here for a couple of things. For one reason, I'm here on behalf of the Grange. I have a little kind of what's going on at the Grange and a little summary of the information that we've collected so far on Martin Luther King that I didn't have last time, so I wanted to give you a copy of that. I wanted to announce that we are going to be using the Sustainable CT mechanism to launch, it's kind of like GoFundMe, but it's called IOBI, to do a couple of projects that we've been looking into. One is a partnership in Hartford with a community garden and a read and seed kiosk that gives away books and seeds to the community. So we're going to be doing that one first because it's very time sensitive with the growing season, but then we're going to be launching some other, another one in town to support some of the educational events and potlucks and things that we've been planning. We are co-hosting with the Land Trust a movie at the library on Earth Day, Call of the Forest. It's on Wednesday April 22nd. The movie starts at 6:30, but there will be kind of refreshments and food at 6 o'clock. I would recommend you would come early because the last movie I hosted, 120 people came. It was mobbed. The Eastern White Pine movie. I think it was a delicious food.
It was the pine needle
We'll be
tea.
providing the same delicious food on Wednesday, the 22nd. And I want to say that one thing that I'm proud of with the Grange is we were trying to be a model of community resilience. So before we put in any clean energy, we're insulating our building and fixing our windows. We got dishes from a church that was going out of business, so now when I do anything at the library, I bring my whole thing, and then I wash the dishes. We use, real tablecloths. I bring those home and wash them. So we're trying to really model, we don't need so much plastic and disposable stuff, and we need to be really responsible with our resources and all aspects of our community, and that's really what the Grange is about. So related to that, we're going to be having what I hope is going to be kind of like a grand reopening on Memorial Day after the parade and everything. It's going to be kind of an old-fashioned barbecue, picnic kind of thing. We have a veteran-owned and operated food truck, and the food will be delicious, not the same food that's at the library. And we're hoping to have like old-fashioned lawn games. If you have a lawn game or table and chairs or anything to loan us for the day, that would be terrific. And everyone is invited. It's free for veterans, and it's we're asking for a $10 donation from other people, but, for all of our events, we try and make them free, even if it's ask for a donation, so that everyone would be able to participate. So that's my upcoming Grange stuff. And then I also wanted to mention, and I probably only have like 30 seconds left, but I've been working on a project called New England Landscape Futures, NELF, which is a tool that was developed by Harvard Forest and a number of partners to look at where your community has been over the past 20 years and kind of fast forward that to 2060. So what are your development patterns? Where has the development been? And I think it's something really important for our boards and our land use boards to look at, because we kind of keep on thinking about things project after project or parcel after parcel in terms of what we're doing with it or how are we managing it. And we really need to kind of take a landscape approach to this. So based on that work, and just based on my general ethos, I want to say that I do support the bike path. And so I absolutely support that project. But I think, a way to support that project and, make sure that our homeowners are all aligned with current regulations and everything is maybe to lease the other parcels. So I just wanted to lend my support to that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Susan. Dr. Rinaldi?
My name is Mike Rinaldi. I live at Pinnacle Mountain Road. Last month, I came here and talked about the lack of disability parking at the Performing Arts Center. I noticed in the Selectmen's budget, the town manager's budget, a $20,000 fee, consultant fee, to look at that problem. We don't need a $20,000 consultant to figure that problem out down there. What we do need is our town engineer. He can adequately evaluate what the needs are down there. However, here's the problem. When the Performing Arts Center was instituted a number of years ago, it was funded by private and public donations. The town didn't put any money into it. And at that time, it was mainly constructed for the Hartford Symphony Orchestra. And when the town ran it, the disability parking beyond was free. There is no other disability parking available. If you're if you don't have a disability, you can park for free any place on Iron Horse Boulevard. But if you are disabled, you have to pay. That's wrong. It was never like that. The Performing Arts Center basically signed a contract with the town, and I guess the fee is they pay us $2,500 for what? That's a $1.5 million structure. Rented for $2,500? Now, I also noticed that there's a $30,000 fee here to stain the Performing Arts Center. Not only do we maintain the place, okay, and the Performing Arts Center has the gall to charge our disabled a $10 fee to park there when they have no other choice. That's wrong. I mean, that's morally wrong. Now, it's not full of mud down there. There is, if it rains, there is some places where that is, but where the disabled parking is, that's processed gravel. Okay, I park there a lot. It can rain all day. The runoff is perfect. But the problem is that there's not enough disability parking, and the parking should not be charged, because it's wrong to have parking for disability people to pay, and for non-disability they could park for free. Now, if they want to park, if the people who are non-disabled want to park in that area and want to pay a fee, that's their choice. Their choice is to pay or not to pay. Disabled don't have that choice. Not only don't they have that choice, there's not enough disabled parking there. Now, by state statute, there is enough parking for disabled. But you have to understand, this is not a supermarket down there. The state statute is one parking space, I guess, for every 100. But we need much more disabled parking down there. And it should be free. And for the upcoming season, before we hire a consultant for $20,000 to figure this thing out, we ought to go back to where we were. We had disability parking for Hartford Symphony concert events free. And tell Linda Schofield that's the way it should be. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak in public audience? Yeah, Lisa.
Good evening, Lisa Gray with Simsbury Chamber of Commerce. Just wanted to share with you that our very popular Business Leaders Breakfast is coming up on March 20th. I know many of you have attended. If you're still thinking about joining us and have not yet, tomorrow would be the deadline to register. It's at the Simsbury Inn. We've got John Leahy, who is the former president of Quinnipiac University, and Simsbury's own Chad Thompson, CEO of Ensign Bickford, who will be our speakers. Tickets are $38, and you can call my office tomorrow or go onto our website and purchase the tickets there tomorrow if you'd like. We also have on March 28th, the end of the month on Saturday, we've got our third annual Community Health Expo coming up at the brand new Anthology of Simsbury. We're going to have 24 vendors and 12 speakers on various topics related to health. So if perhaps your New Year's resolutions are slipping a little bit and you need a little reminder of what you need to do, hope you plan to come and see us 10 to 2 on the 28th. And then you have probably heard of my impending departure from the Simsbury Chamber. And they have made a selection for my replacement. Her name is Morgan Hilliard. She'll be starting on March 23rd. And it looks right now like my last day will be April 10th. So I just wanted to thank you so much and tell you how much I've enjoyed working with all of you these last 5.5 years. It has been my tremendous pleasure. And I look forward to working with you on other projects in other capacities.
Thank you, Lisa. And I know
Thank you,
we would.
Lisa.
That goes
Appreciate it.
two ways. Thanks for your service to our town.
We'll see you before then.
You're going to see me in about 30 seconds.
Would anyone else like to speak in public audience?
Your resolution?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm Sharon Byron, and I just want to reinforce this disability issue, because I have been with PAC since 1996, when it first started with John Jepson, and where I got fired out of the parking lot because I had the occasion of allowing a longtime subscriber to park in a spot. A new person came into town who was a high donor, who was upset, and at the time she was giving me a sitsy fit. There was someone starting a grill over by the stage, and in that I have my EMR, and I was concerned about safety, and we were having disabled people unload with oxygen tanks. I thought that was sort of my priority, and that was the last time that I ended up parking over there. I now help out with other things at the event. However, this disability part, we have people that do come in after surgery with the knee stuff, so they have those little walkers that don't go very well on those pieces, and trying to have a loop where people can disembark is good, and we have to be able to address the buses better. So I just think that needs a little traffic flow, see. And again, because it's a concert, people come out of the nursing homes, people bring their disabled people out because it's a nice experience. Point number one, the access. Point number two is I want to see no smoking, no vaping, no tobacco, no pot at our field. And I want that enforced. I think that is really important. In 1978, I also was, during the Surgeon Coop involvement with tobacco, when it was banned in the workplace. I happened to be pregnant at United Technologies, and I went to a whole hoo-ha with that during that time. And so therefore, I think it's really important that we respect side stream smoke for other people that attend these events. And if you want to smoke your pot, take your vape, or your whatever, take it off the streets. We hire these event managers there now, and they have no clue. They've gone to 3 different events that day. I interview them periodically. So that's short and sweet, but I want to see us have a really nice 350th down there, and I want to see everything go well.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon.
So it's just impromptu today, but I think these are very, very important issues.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay. And we'll move on to our presentation. Lisa, I hope you're not too comfortable. We're going to begin with a presentation on the Recovery Friendly Community Initiative.
Thank you. All right. I have not worked this before, so let's make sure. All right. There we go. Oh, just down arrow. Okay. There we go. All right. So, good evening again. I'm putting on a different hat right now, and I am representing A Promise to Jordan. Again, Lisa Gray from A Promise to Jordan, and I am here this evening to introduce you to an initiative that's being led by the State of Connecticut Alcohol and Drug Policy Council Recovery and Health Management Subcommittee, to designate Connecticut communities as recovery friendly. 3 communities in Connecticut have been designated as recovery friendly so far. The towns of Bristol, Danbury, and New Britain as recently as this January. So as you're all no doubt aware, the opioid epidemic and addiction in general has taken a tremendous toll on our country and on our state. And our little town of Simsbury has not escaped unscathed. Deaths caused by addiction are rising at an alarming rate across the United States. Accidental overdose is now the leading cause of death for Americans under age 50. It's not accidents, it's not disease, it's overdose. About 5.1 million young adults in the U.S. aged 18 to 25 were battling a substance use disorder in 2017, the most recent year that stats were available, and that equates to almost 15% of that population, or about 1 in 7 people. And about 3.4 million young adults in that age range were battling an alcohol use disorder in 2017, or about 10% of that population. But let's not believe that this is a problem that is only in the younger demographic. In 2018, there were 1,017 overdose deaths in Connecticut. As we learned a couple of weeks ago, in 2019, there were 1,200. Just in the state of Connecticut, an 18% increase, which is huge. And the average age was 43 in Connecticut, and actually ranged as high as 79. The youngest, I believe, was 17. In the last 8 years, our small community has lost at least 14 people that I know of its residents and former residents of Simsbury to an accidental overdose, and this number does not take into account the number of alcoholics who have died from complications related to their disease, or addicts who have intentionally taken their own lives because they saw no other way out as a direct result of their illness. With those, the number would climb into the many dozens, and it also does not take into account the number of overdose victims who were saved in the nick of time through the use of Narcan or naloxone. And if we were to add those in, it would reach into the hundreds for sure, just here in Simsbury. But lost among the headlines of opioid addiction and overdose deaths are the many quiet stories of recovery. An estimated 24 million Americans are in recovery from opioid and other addictions. And if we apply the law of averages, that would mean about 12% of our population in Simsbury are in recovery right now. But I say estimated because states and the federal government don't track recovery like they track addiction stats and overdoses. And I believe that losing sight of the idea that recovery can be a reality can skew public policy and fundraising priorities to narrowly focus only on preventing deaths, instead of aiming more broadly to both reduce unnecessary deaths and promote long-term wellness among the more than 20 million Americans who have a substance use disorder. So after the loss of my own 24-year-old son to an accidental overdose on June 30th, 2018, I founded A Promise to Jordan to raise awareness of the problem of substance use disorders in communities like Simsbury and help erase the stigma surrounding them. And since that time, I have received overwhelming support from members of our community expressing their desire to help us fulfill our mission, or simply thanking me for speaking out and bringing this problem out of the shadows and into the light. The days of hiding, lying about, or denying substance use disorders are over, and we must speak out and take action if we're ever going to get a handle on this epidemic, effect change, and save lives. So the state of Connecticut has designated only 3 other communities as recovery friendly, as I said a moment ago at this point, Danbury, Bristol, and recently New Britain. But these communities have made a commitment to offering their residents substance-free events. They're providing education and peer groups in their schools, and many of their businesses have pledged to hire those in recovery to give them a second chance at a successful life after treatment and/or incarceration, among other things. And we'll look at the checklist in a moment about some of the things that we could be doing. So why is recovery friendly important? It's important because 85% of individuals receiving treatment for substance use disorders relapse within their first year. 85%, that's a huge number. And their most common reasons for relapse include stress, negative mood and anxiety, drug and alcohol-related cues, temptations, boredom, and a lack of a positive environment. But what if we could change those things for our Simsbury residents? What if we could ease their stress, negative mood, and anxiety by offering more resources for people in recovery to turn to in times of stress? What if we could modify those drug-related cues and temptations by being more conscious of messaging that we're sending out that's either overtly or subliminally encouraging alcohol or drug use? What if we could ease their boredom by hosting recovery-friendly programs, activities, and events in town? And what if we could change that lack of a positive environment by embracing them and showing them that their community cares about their needs and supports their efforts? So what does it take? What does recovery friendly look like? This is a checklist that has been prepared by the Alcohol and Drug Policy Council, intended for use by municipalities who are looking to be recognized as recovery friendly. I won't go through every point because I believe it was shared with you and you have it in your packet tonight. I am very proud of my community that I can say that I would estimate that over 50% of the things on this checklist Simsbury is already doing. And I thank you for that. It's not a very long checklist, and they are not things that are difficult to achieve and fulfill. So I hope that we will be able to start checking more things off of that list after today's meeting. So what would it take to become recovery friendly? The town of Simsbury would have to declare its intention to become a recovery-friendly community, and that could happen with a resolution from your board this evening. The state does require that the town appoint a recovery champion to lead the effort of becoming recovery-friendly, and I and a promise to Jordan are willing to fulfill that role of being the recovery champion. Town of Simsbury would need to commit to assisting in these efforts. Kristen from the Department of Community and Social Services and Jennifer Katanis from the Farmington Valley Health District have already stepped up to partner with a promise to Jordan in these efforts. I'm very happy to say, and I'm very appreciative of that. We recently, the town and a promise to Jordan and the Health District received a mini grant from the Connecticut State Opioid Response Initiative, and a good portion of that grant, some of the fulfillables that we need to perform in order to receive that grant, will focus on the recovery-friendly effort and several other efforts to combat the opioid use disorder, opioid use problem. And Kristen has said that staff time will be given in kind. So I thank you for your time this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Lisa. What questions?
Certainly.
Thank you, Lisa. What would be an ideal measurement of, and I'm struggling for the right word, so if it's just ignorance, I apologize. But what would be in your eyes, measurement after the fact of our success and pathing forward, or is it intangible? Is it not really? Are you not able to? And I actually will trust subjective success measures, but do you have those in mind as well to help us to make sure that we're actually fulfilling it and we're moving forward in the right manner?
Yeah, I think there are some very clear ways that we can demonstrate our commitment to being recovery friendly. One of the ways that would be most important, and something that needs to be changed right now, is having resources available on the town website. Because many people who are living in our community are going to turn to the town website for help, and we should be listing some of those things there. So having something like that there, that would be something we could easily turn to and see and be able to say, this is what we're doing for that community. We need to be offering more events that are not so much beer and wine focused, particularly at the Performing Arts Center. It'd be nice to see some things where people from this recovery community can feel comfortable going and not feeling like they have the temptation that they want to drink. So there are a lot of things that can be done that will be easily measurable in the end, yeah.
So it's mostly like resources, people helping out and planning, communications, helping with communications.
Yeah, and it's mostly being mindful of when we're putting messages out there, who is seeing those messages and how might it affect them. And when we're planning different programs through the town, who might be participating in those programs and how can we better meet their needs? Are there any minor changes that we can meet to really be inclusive of everyone?
And you're part of Community for Care, is that?
I am not part of that committee. I attend their meetings.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm not officially part of it.
Okay, but that's part of their mission, I was gonna, right?
Right, so it all kind of is looping together.
Yeah.
The Community for Care acts as our local prevention council, which supports some of these efforts.
Okay.
And the town felt strongly enough to go after this additional grant money, and that's how we started to develop this additional and larger partnership with Lisa and a promise to Jordan. Some of the things to further answer your question that we've already started to plan is we have a pamphlet that we're going to be introducing to our first responders and encouraging how to talk with people that are just recently facing an overdose. So on-site something that we can hand off to them with real concrete information. We're also planning a lunch and learn at the senior center, which is going to focus on safe storage and safe disposal of all medications, but especially narcotics, and also re-promoting into the community the safe disposal drop box that we have in the police department. And then there are additional events planned, such as Narcan events to teach people how to use Narcan appropriately. And in conjunction with that is our question, persuade, respond training, which is a suicide prevention training. So those are some of the things that we're already planning that are a little bit more tangible, just to give you that update.
I don't mean to the visual. People always talk about a net, right? A net saves people, and so I imagine that the idea here would be to stitch together a network of towns, of communities like this, so that we become one big net, and we start here, we can figure out whichever way it'll work. So is this an opportunity, though, as we're talking about this, and as we move forward with it, and maybe not the most expedient way that you would prefer, but to start talking about with Avon, talking about Canton, and the towns around us, so that we can move them along the conversation as well, and talk with because I imagine people, where people cross over all the time, and have friends and family, whichever. So maybe that's a way to fast forward the dialogue with our surrounding towns, to really make sure this is this is moving out.
Absolutely. So let's be the first, let's set the example, and hopefully this is.
So we go down this path, we consider it, I would make the proposal that we reach out immediately to the other towns, say, hey, we're doing this, you might want to follow along with us as well, to help you fast track your scorecard. So if they may not have a championing like Lisa locally to help them along the way, so maybe we could do it as a regional opportunity.
We started that conversation with the town of Granby, and we're doing a joint presentation with Granby on the safe storage and disposal at their senior center. And I know that previously we'd worked with the health district with a prior grant year in the mini grant, and Jennifer had created a lot of flyers and educational materials that had all of our towns listed on it. So I think that you're right, this is the next step in continuing in that movement, and I think having the health district on board is a good connection for us with those other towns.
And just to add on to what Chris said, I agree with the regional approach, and if I could be of any help reaching out to other First Select people in the area, getting other elected officials interested and engaged, let me know. Any other questions from the board?
Thank you. Just to bring to attention, the safe disposal box is in dispatch?
Right in the lobby, you walk up to dispatch, it's right next to dispatch.
At the police department, just so everybody knows. Perfect.
No judgment, no questions, walk in, dispose, walk out.
In the lobby.
Great.
And one of the things that we're going to be purchasing with the grant funding is actual disposal bags that can be utilized at home. They'll be pre-filled with kitty litter and instructions on how to properly dispose of the medications at home, so that you have the option of either doing it yourself or coming to the police department.
That's great.
If the board is supportive tonight, is there a motion to endorse and support the pursuit of the establishment of Simsbury as a recovery-friendly community?
So moved.
Second.
Any further conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Fantastic.
Lisa,
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lisa.
Appreciate it, guys.
And thank you, too, to our wonderful social services department that does a lot with limited resources. Moving on to my first selectman's report. The town is in regular contact with the Farmington Valley Health District, which is monitoring the spread of the coronavirus. The Health District is aggregating information on its website, fvhd.org, information specific to schools, faith-based organizations, and the community in general. It is an excellent source of information, and much of it links directly back to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Public health officials continue to emphasize that while the immediate risk of this new virus to the American public is believed to be low at this time, everyone can do their part to respond to this emerging public health threat. That includes basic hygiene, such as washing hands with soap and water, along with avoiding contact with those who are sick, staying home when we are sick, and disinfecting frequently touched objects. Also, Hartford Healthcare has established a 24-hour hotline for anyone who has questions about the virus. That number is 860-972-8100. Some key dates in the budget process. March 10th, that's tomorrow, the Board of Education is presenting its proposed budget to the Board of Finance. March 11th would be a special Board of Selectmen meeting to discuss and possibly adopt the budget if we don't do so tonight. March 17th, the Board of Selectmen will be presenting our budget to the Board of Finance. April 7th, the Board of Finance holds their public hearing, and then the budget referendum is tentatively scheduled for May 19th at Henry James. This year, Simsbury, as I think most of us know, is celebrating its 350th anniversary. Work is well underway, planning a series of events to mark this milestone. You can see all of the events at simsbury350.com. Also, the Facebook page at facebook.com/Simsbury350. Some dates you can reserve. The opening ceremony is taking place May 17th at 2 p.m. at First Church, followed by a giant birthday party at the Flower Bridge. River Day is scheduled for June 27th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Opportunity to rent kayaks and canoes, food trucks, ice cream, lots of fun. Also, save the date for the closing gala, November 13th. And our board saved the date of May 11th, which is one day before the official 350th anniversary. We're going to do a dress-down day of sorts. Anyone who wants to is welcome to wear 350 memorabilia. And we'll plan some other things, hopefully, to say thank you to the people working so hard on planning these events.
We get wild and crazy up here.
Anything not to have to wear this suit. Community for Care and the Simsbury Spirit Council invite you to join them for a panel discussion about implicit bias, how our unconscious beliefs shape our experiences. That's taking place March 11th. That is Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. at the Simsbury Public Library. Also, welcome to two new businesses. Ribbon cutting for your CBD store, located at 1243 Hot Meadow Street, is scheduled for March 19th. And Toke Chiropractic and Wellness is celebrating its grand reopening Thursday, March 26th, 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. That's at 102 Hot Meadow Street. Maria?
Great. Thank you. Good evening. I'm going to jump right ahead to department news and notes. The Simsbury Farms Golf Course did, in fact, open today. It was beautiful weather, so a great day to have the golf course open for the season. We've provided a link for those individuals interested in learning more about the Farms Golf Course. A couple of really, I think, special fundraising efforts that happened for our food programs recently. So we had 8th grade students as part of Ms. Rigby's Family and Consumer Sciences class at Henry James Middle School. They raised $236 for our food closet recently. They also learned about food insecurity within our community, and they did a bake sale and some other things to gather funds. We're very appreciative to those students for that very generous donation. We also had students at Terriffill Elementary School under the direction of Mr. Baxter, who also raised funds recently for our food programs. They had an empty bowl project and an ice cream social. They raised $700 for our food closet. Rachel Loveland, our community social worker, participated in accepting that donation. And again, we are just so grateful to these youngsters for helping us to fight hunger locally. So really wanted to recognize their good work and their efforts there. We do have a few upcoming special events from Community and Social Services. They will be hosting a St. Patrick's Day event at the Senior Center. There will be a traditional lunch catered by Kane's Market. That is on Monday, March 15th. The cost is $9, and folks can sign up by contacting the Senior Center. We also have an upcoming program that's going to be held at Eno, celebrating the women's suffrage movement. Seneca Falls to the 19th Amendment, Songs of the American Woman Suffrage Movement. That will be held on March 22nd from 2 to 3 p.m. And lastly, the Aging and Disability Commission, in partnership with the Department of Community and Social Services, will be presenting the annual sensory-friendly Spring Fling. That will occur on April 6th from 4 to 6:30 p.m. at Eno Memorial Hall. All are welcome, and no registration is needed.
Thank you.
Can I just correct the St. Patrick's Day thing is the 16th.
Oh, the 16th. Thank you.
It's my birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Monday the 16th. Thank you for catching that. Thank you.
All right, moving on to Selectmen action. Item A is tax refund requests. Is there a motion effective March 9, 2020 to approve the presented tax refunds in the amount of $1,631.63 and to authorize Town Manager Maria Capriola to execute the tax refunds?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item B, we received a generous donation from the Hartford Federal Credit Union to support our food closet, and the Board of Selectmen needs to accept donations that are above $1,500. So is there a motion effective March 9th, 2020 to accept the $2,000 monetary donation from the Hartford Federal Credit Union for the purpose of supporting our food programs?
So moved, with our thanks.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item C, so we've got a number of public gathering permits. The first is the 2020 Simsbury Junior Women's Club Craft Show. That's in September. The dates are September 19th and 20th, taking place in the usual location in the commuter lots off of Iron Horse Boulevard. Were there any questions about this event?
Just a comment.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful event. People look forward to it every year, and I'm excited that we're doing it, part of Junior Women's.
Yeah.
Very
And
excited.
is this the first year that Junior Women's is taking over the running of it?
Fully, yes.
Awesome. Okay. So I'll read the motion. Is there a motion effective March 9th, 2020, to approve the public gathering application for the 2020 Simsbury Junior Women's Club Craft Show and to authorize the issuance of the public gathering permit with a condition that the event is not permitted to use power?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Any further conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Item D, the Valley Collector Club Car Show is scheduled for July 19th in the commuter lots off of Iron Horse Boulevard. Any questions on this event? Okay. Is there a motion effective March 9th, 2020, to approve the public gathering application for the 2020 Valley Car Club Show and to authorize the issuance of the public gathering permit with the condition that the event is not permitted to use power?
So moved.
Second.
Any conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item E, the Farmington Valley Jewish Congregation is holding a service to mark the beginning of the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. That's on September 18th at the Simsbury Farms Ice Rink. Any questions on this one? Okay. Is there a motion effective March 9th, 2020, to approve the public gathering application for the 2020 Farmington Valley Jewish Congregation Rosh Hashanah event and authorize the issuance of the public gathering permit?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? That motion carries. Item F, the Public Gathering Committee has approved the application for the Theater Guild, which is holding a performance at Simsbury Meadows on June 18th. The Theater Guild will be conducting a staged reading of Our Town as part of the Simsbury 350th celebration. Is there a motion effective March 9th, 2020, to approve the public gathering application for the Simsbury Performing Arts Center Theater Guild performance and to authorize the issuance of the public gathering permit?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Missy, is there anything you wanted to add to this?
If
You-
you don't mind me, can I do it just a very
Oh, yeah,
quick
come on up.
little-
Come on up.
Here's what's coming up
Sure.
Because you left out one very important 350th event.
Uh-oh.
You're going to get it.
So I'll start with that one. I'm,
Let's do
you
it.
know, I am the executive director at the Simsbury Meadows Performing Arts Center. I do want to also thank those who spoke tonight about accessibility. It's something that I've been very involved with in my career, and it's something that we have talked about in the town manager's office quite a bit. So thank you for voicing your opinions. I know I've encouraged people to do so, and you are welcome to reach out to me as well. Sharon, I know we know each other. So anyone who wants to talk about accessibility is welcome to speak to me as well. So we have a great season coming up. Thank you for the opportunity to just chat about that for one quick second. The first thing I want to mention about Septemberfest is 350th day at Septemberfest, complete with parade and fireworks this year. And if you wear Simsbury gear, you get in free. So why not join us?
Excellent.
Absolutely.
We'll have our t-shirts.
The town and I, Lisa and Tom, and a lovely subcommittee of individuals have been meeting quite frequently to make sure it is the best Septemberfest yet, in honor of the 350th. So we hope everyone will come out. We have a bunch of runs and races coming up. Start to check our website soon, because as soon as we get all these public gathering permits in and confirmed, all the advertising will start. And we are very excited, obviously, about Darius Rucker coming up. Tickets have sold quite quickly, so we encourage people to buy, if they're looking for lawn tickets, at Fitzgerald's Foods. Pre-show sale, $50, because the online sales have now gone up to $65 based on demand. So that's a hot little piece of information that the town might want to know.
Did you put together the meet and greet package for me?
We'll have to talk later.
You could probably make a few bucks off that one.
But I did at least want to get that 350th plug in for Septemberfest, because it is
Yeah,
gonna be
thank
a
you.
big one for
Thank
us.
you for that.
And then you have coming up, obviously, the Freemasons Festival, which can be a little misleading. It is a festival, yes, but the Spin Doctors are the headliner, and that is a 90s favorite that we're very, very excited
I was going to
about.
say, you got Hootie and the Blowfish, and then you've got the Spin Doctors coming.
We're trying.
All right.
Yeah. So, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
That's fun.
Did we, I just want to make sure we actually read the motion for that last one before we get in trouble. Yes, we did. Okay, so the next one is the Freemasons event. Was there any questions on that item?
No.
Is there a motion effective March 9th, 2020, to approve the public gathering application for the Simsbury Performing Arts Center Freemasons Festival and to authorize the issuance of the public gathering permit?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That item passes. And H is the Simsbury Parks and Rec 2020 Easter egg hunt, which, out of respect for the process, I didn't put in my first Selectmen's report tonight, but the one that goes out tomorrow I will, assuming we approve the application. Is there a motion effective March 9th, 2020, to approve the public gathering application for the Simsbury Parks and Rec 2020 Easter egg hunt and to authorize the issuance of the public gathering permit?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
Do you think we're going to fight about that one?
No, but I'm just trying to respect the process. Like, we didn't approve it, so I'm not going to promote it. Tom, remind me what the date is of that.
Saturday, April 11th. It's the Saturday before Easter, 9 in the morning till about 11. Bounce houses, face painting, the Easter Bunny will be there. Ages 3 to 10. That's all you need to know at this point.
Great. Thanks for, I love the fact that Parks and Rec is organizing these kinds of events. Thank you.
Brooke Group Real Estate in Simsbury is partnering with us for that event.
Thank you to them as well. We did item H. Item I is the Mira Statement of Interest. So, Mira's trash-to-energy plant is beyond its useful life, and Mira is looking at replacing the facility and is seeking feedback from member towns to inform how they move forward in the process. So staff has taken our feedback from the past 2 meetings, and they've drafted a letter that, if we're comfortable, we can endorse tonight. And I just wanted to open it up for feedback on that letter. Or actually, is there anything you wanted to add, Maria?
No, just, again, this is our revised correspondence based on the most recent feedback we heard, and are hoping that if you all feel comfortable that we've captured everything you were looking for us to capture, that we can proceed to send this correspondence on to Mira.
I thought it sounded really positive that we were supporting them without any sort of commitment in the areas of issue. And it was fairly general, so I thought that was kind of a good way to approach it.
Other thoughts?
I think it captured our thoughts of the last couple of meetings and our concerns.
We've shared our thoughts twice.
We did.
If we haven't gotten the letter right this time,
We're
then
going
I
to
don't
talk
know.
about this
Okay.
10 more times, so I'm good with it the way it is.
Sean, do you have the motion up handy?
I did. So you want me to make it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'd like to make a motion to move effective March 9th, 2020, to authorize the town manager and first selectman to send the attached prepared correspondence to Mira.
Second?
Any further conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes.
So moved.
For anyone who is just catching up to this, we discussed this extensively at our last 2 meetings, so this was not a rushed process, so thank you. Item J is really a cleanup item. The Public Building Committee has had a standing agenda item for at least 4 years that's looking into the relocation of SCTV from Eno. There's not an immediate need to discuss that, so I don't see this as a change in policy. It's really just giving them the direction that they can take it off their agenda, and when the time comes, if the time comes, they could put it on, and then folks will actually know it's being discussed, because right now it's just sitting there. Were there any questions on this item? Okay.
Just a couple, it's location change, right? I mean, a couple times I've said location charge, so just, we can clean that up.
Oh, sure, it was, sorry, we had to submit that as that, it was a charge given to the
because I wasn't sure if that was the
committee.
right word. It
But it's a
was the right
location,
word?
yeah.
We were
it's
charging them with.
Okay, I thought it was
change.
very
Yes.
hard to follow.
Yeah,
So it is correct, the charge and the change.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion effective March 9th, 2020, to rescind the Board of Selectmen directive issued October 28th of 2016 to the Public Building Committee to begin studying a location change for SCTV?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Item K.
No, it's confusing, sorry.
Maria's going to.
Oh, sorry, I was just taking a note, but yes, thank you.
Audience for this one. The town manager's 3-year contract expires at the end of next January, And I'd like to initiate the process of either renewing her contract if the board is supportive, or if we're not going to renew her contract, it requires at least 6 months of notice. And since Maria is relatively new to this role, and the town manager role is relatively new to Simsbury, Sean and I wanted to see if the board would be supportive of charging the Personnel Subcommittee with providing a recommendation on how to move forward with the process. So whether we would move forward with renewing Maria's contract or look outside. And our proposal would be to have an open process where we would seek feedback from this board, members of the public, et cetera, to help inform that decision.
Do we need action on that?
Yeah, can you give me?
So the action would be referring to the Personnel Subcommittee.
Great. So
that charge.
So we just need the charge. This is consistent with how we even
That was
started
my
the town
question.
manager
Yeah.
process in the
Right,
first place.
great.
We
So
we're just
send
trying
it to the Personnel Subcommittee to figure out how are we going to do the process, contract fees,
Yeah.
negotiation,
Yeah.
everything in the.
Let's not to spend too much time on it. It's
Yes, sir.
100% in line with what we did. Start this, let's move it.
Okay. Is there a motion effective March 9th, 2020, to refer to the Personnel Subcommittee the matter of the town manager's contract and request that the Personnel Subcommittee provides a recommendation to the full Board of Selectmen no later than June 22nd?
I'll move that.
Second.
Wendy beat you.
Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes.
I'm trying to fill Mike's seat here because he's pretty quick.
Okay, you gotta move it for twice as much. HIJKL. So this is really a good news item, pretty cool to report. Interest rates right now are so low that the town may be able to refinance one of its bonds and save an estimated $260,000 over the remaining life of the loan. Maria, you want to provide a little bit of context on this item?
Sure. So you may recall that late last spring, we switched consulting firms for our bond advisor, essentially, and they have been incredibly proactive, and they have been monitoring markets and looking at our existing debt, and they brought this to our attention that we have an opportunity to potentially save about $260,000 for the remaining 10 years that is left on our clean water loan. So really great opportunity for us. That would directly benefit the enterprise fund. And Avon and Granby are part owners of the plant, so they would receive part essentially of that benefit. But again, just a really good opportunity for us. And Bond Council has said that the board in our town that has the authority to essentially authorize us to proceed with refunding the bonds is the Board of Selectmen. So we would be seeking your approval to proceed. And then we will be reviewing this with the Board of Finance at their meeting tomorrow night. That is an advisory sort of role capacity. We will not proceed until we have feedback from them, but assuming that their advisory opinion would be to proceed, we wanted to make sure that we didn't lose sort of critical time here and brought this to your attention this evening.
That's excellent.
It's great news.
It is great news. Go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to say, Amy and I caught up on this last week. Obviously, there's really no downside to it, and it's not often we get to say that up here. So we don't do comments from the audience during the meeting. We have to. There's really no downside to this, and I would hope that the Board of Finance would also be on board with it, because again, we're saving the users $260,000 and not re-amortizing the schedule, so.
Total, 260,000, but it looks like what would come to Simsbury.
The users overall.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yes, there are users outside of the town as well.
Yep.
No, I'm just.
No, I'm sorry, we don't take comments
Yeah, I
from
didn't
the
know if
audience
you-
during the meeting. No, I'm
We
sorry.
can't.
Okay, please do. And I did frame this as a good news item. I mean, it's partially good news. It has to do with bad news on the macroeconomic level with the economy
interest
right
rates are
now. So
crumbling.
I just want folks to know that I'm aware of that, but it is going to save our taxpayers a good amount of money. So, is there, Sean?
The users.
Oh, yes.
An important distinction. The taxpayers don't pay for the sewer plant.
Yeah.
Sorry, sometimes that
That's
gets
true.
confused.
That's true. You're right. Is there a motion effective March 9th, 2020, to authorize the issuance of $9 million refunding bonds for payment of the outstanding principal of and interest and any call premium on any portion of the town of $21,037,216.21 project loan obligation dated March 31st, 2008, and costs related thereto.
So moved.
That was a mouthful.
That was good.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further conversation?
Who brought this to our attention? Is it just Amy doing good stewardship? or-
Our bond consultants, Phoenix.
They did?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great work. Thank you.
Yes, they are
Is there an
amazing.
opportunity to look into this on a larger scale?
Yeah, what else is out there that,
The high school came off, so that was the big one. We already did this years ago in the high school, right?
We did this actually at a couple meetings ago with the Board of Finance. They had already asked him to look into if anything else is worth refinancing, but nothing else.
I'm sure they would, I'm sure the BOF is
Yep.
on top of stuff.
We just locked
Great
in the
stuff.
big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion
Eric, can I
carries.
just ask Amy for
Of
one
course.
clarification? Do we also need the board to make a separate resolution to adopt the included resolution? If we could just get a second motion to that effect to adopt the attached resolution?
Yeah, would there be a motion to adopt the attached resolution?
So moved.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
So before we get to item M, which is the budget conversation, I wanted to just pause for 3 minutes and see if we could get Mike Payne on the phone.
Do that.
Great.
Are we just resuming kind of where we were?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay.
Hey, what's that?
Okay,
What do you mean? No, the finance director does. It's just the bond count. That has nothing to do with this. This is just the debt that we, this is just money. But this is only water going into the river. They don't make any water for consumption there. Yeah. Yeah, no, this is just the sewage treatment plant. We borrowed $21 million 10 years ago to bring the plant up to stand. Yeah. Nope. Yeah, this is just changing the financials.
Can you get around? Maybe I picked up most of my pills.
Yeah, exactly. That's, you should maybe ask for one of those bags with kitty litter in it, okay? No joke. Look what I get. Stunt double.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Did you get the wrong one?
No.
Oh, he left it.
Christine took, I left it in my car the other day, her car the other day. She went down to,
Do you know how to read it anyway?
not my glasses, I can't read any of the stuff I look at.
It was a former Board of Finance member that never opened his before he voted on it.
Well, that's, you just trust.
It wasn't for my party.
So just trust his peers to get it right, right?
Came in, so I had left his car and admitted.
It'll just take a moment for it to.
Really? That's on camera? That's
Really, impressive individual.
Who did?
Tell you later.
Oh,
Cameras are on.
got it. Sorry.
Again, not our member.
Oh, yeah, no.
What are we doing? CNR.
Yeah, that's so.
Almost ready.
Maria's gonna tell me how 1,000,006 turns into 416 and 316 and 391, and it all works out.
Wishful thinking.
Wait till the chief I say, wait till the chief gets back.
Sean, he's got jokes. He's got jokes.
You start telling dad jokes, I will give you some money.
Sorry, it's just taking a moment for this
That's
to
all right.
load up.
Remember who laughed at all of your jokes?
I never say anything funny though.
That's true.
I'm serious.
You know what?
Yeah, I appreciate you. Lisa can have 10 grand right now. We'll just move her from line 1 to line 2. Done. And then if you're over on the power at the end of the year, I don't know, it's Tom Roy's fault. You didn't buy the right power.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Of course you are, you're in Florida.
All right. Do you want to jump ahead to outside agencies?
Sure, let's start there, because I know that's where Mike had a specific contribution.
Where are we? Outside agencies?
Yeah, Mike has something specific he wants us to consider in there. Well, we've got him.
Oopsie, why is this up here?
Okay. So this is more or less where we left off a few days ago. We met on Saturday. We heard from Interval House and from SCTV, and I just wanted to have some conversation around these outside agency funding requests. And first, Mike, I'll turn it over to you because I know that there was a specific thought that you wanted the board to consider.
Yes, you've already talked about the Interval House and the others. What my thought was on Simsbury Chamber of Commerce to increase their request from, or what was in the budget from $5,000 to $7,500, and to also add $2,500 that would actually go to the task force, the
technology task force?
Technology task force, thank you. For them to develop and, for lack of a better term, get a document that we can have available through the internet that the residents can look at anytime they want to access that information. Right now, my concern is that when the chamber's open, the information's there, but when their doors are closed, people can't get at the information. This would allow it to be done digitally and therefore be available, I would assume, through the town's website, but let the technology task force work with EDC to develop a final document.
What is, I'm not following, so what is that, what are you saying? Like, so you're saying to take some of the requested funding from the chamber, because was it for advertising or getting the word out, and you want to have the task force create a website? I'm just,
Mike,
what does that mean?
Let me try, because I'm...
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me back up. I'll try, and then if I don't say it clearly enough there, please jump in. The chamber's request was for $10,000. They were in the budget for $5,000. My suggestion is to increase that to $7,500 for the chamber, plus another $2,500 that would go through to be used by the technology task force and or EDC. I'm not sure who should oversee what piece of that, but to create the documents in a digital format and have them available on the town's website, which could probably then be linked to the chamber website so
Mike,
that people can access that.
And I think, Wendy, you're missing the history here. We've talked about this a number of times in terms of the chamber provides the visitor center for the town of Simsbury.
I knew that, yep.
So this is what Mike's talking about, is the $2,500 will go towards the digital visitor center side of it, is something that we've kicked around here. Because to Mike's point, folks aren't always open, and that's not how folks always access information. And we've talked about this a couple of times, how to best facilitate visiting this town and get the information out there. And in the old thought process, or perhaps the current, it was go to a kiosk, go to a building, go somewhere. But that's not what most of us necessarily do. So how do we expand and become more visitor friendly with the changing demographics, changing technology is, I think, what Mike's going here. So we would increase the funding for the chamber 50% and then allocate another 50% for the digital visitor center, I think is what Mike is saying.
So was the chamber's, this increase had nothing to do with the digital presence, so we're just taking that away for our digital presence, which...
They don't have it now, so we're not taking anything.
Well, right, they're asking, right? They're asking for 4,000.
Yeah, so under what Mike's saying, we would give less than
Yes,
the
I
full
get that,
4,000 that they're asking for.
Right, but I'm also questioning who, if the technology task force, who on that group, like, we're funding them to do this, who's doing that? That's the only question I have, right? The Technology Task Force is the group of volunteers, which I'm a liaison for, so I don't understand how they're going to be responsible for putting out all the digital content for the chamber. That's the miss.
I don't see the Technology Task Force doing that. I see them approving what technology we need to do that, to make that information available in a digital format. They're not staff. They're not set up to do something, but they're set to oversee something, especially in light of what we're been working on with the Economic Development Commission.
So you're saying the 2,500 would be overseen by them to find somebody to build an addendum to the website with all the chamber digital content, right? Is what you're saying?
Yes, I believe so. In all honesty, I'm not the liaison to EDC or the Technology Task Force. I was unable to, this came to me over the weekend after listening to everything on Saturday, and this seemed to address a number of issues. But other than talking to the chamber about this, and I spoke with the chamber president, and he was agreeable to this, but I have not talked to anybody from the task force or EDC. Poor Maria.
Well, I think what we wanted to talk about philosophically on this is this like a direction we want to move in? And I would say, my opinion, absolutely, because that's how people access information in the 21st century. I don't know if 2,500 is the right number, and I think my comfort level would be to say, maybe this is something we would want to charge the Technology Task Force with, and EDC and tourism. I think it would be a combination. But hold off on a dollar amount until we know what that ask looks like.
I agree with that, but if it's not proposed in the budget, where do we go from there?
We move it around at the end of the year from somewhere else.
Yeah, we can make we generally, yeah, that's exactly what.
Maybe someone will volunteer to build it out.
Well, I mean, the point is fair, is we don't know how much it's gonna cost yet, so is it 2,500 or is it 25,000? Hopefully it's not 25,000.
No.
But if it is 2,500 or 5,000, generally, with the stellar fiscal management we have in town, that doesn't become a problem to fund, right? Generally.
Yeah, Maria?
I mean, one example recently where we did something similar at year end, the EDC was looking to assist, right, based on your guidance with updating marketing materials. We had initially made that request through the budgeting process last year. It was rejected by the Board of Finance. Ultimately, we came back with a proposal a second time to the Board of Finance with year-end savings, and then they did at that point, authorize that essentially project with year-end savings. So that might be a good approach, is that once we get a handle on, do we want to do an app? What do we mean by digital content? Do we want to do website work? Really try to get a handle on what that cost would be, and then, go forth with a proposal based on that cost estimate.
I like that.
Okay. Is it, hey, Mike, hi. Maybe you do or don't know the answer to this question, which is okay. And I feel for you. I know what it's like to feel like you're going to be the mouthpiece for something that was just introduced to you at the last moment. And you do your best to get up to speed. So revisionist history, we reduced the budget for the chamber. And then the ask was to put it back in the subsequent years now if we put the money back in now in the form of $2,500 for the Technology Task Force for the whatever the word is, of digitization of materials, which sounds cool, I can understand that, and that's done. Then next year, are we likely to see, if a request to fully fund them back to 10K, or have we had met their current needs and are comfortable with what the town is providing now? You have any feel for that at all, Mike, or not?
I have no clue, in all honesty. This was a concept that I came up with, and I started calling some people today about it. I came up with it yesterday. I'm trying to, frankly, get the information, find a way to digitally get the information out there, because that's how everything people are doing stuff mostly on their phone, but also from their tablets or computers.
Okay.
And when a building is closed, they can't get at the information. That's why we put our agendas and everything else on the web.
Totally get that. And I guess what I may maybe ask is that, do you have a sense that they feel that 10,000 is really their natural ideal number from the town to meet their operating needs going forward? Or do you think we would be at, I know we're quibbling over $2,500, but it is, in the grand scheme of things, with all the $2,500 requests we get, they add up to a lot of $2,500.
Yep.
So just kind of trying to get perspective for what the temperature or temperament may be going forward, as if that's 7,500 is what their ideal operating capital is.
What they did was they asked for 10,000. I believe in our budget, we proposed $5,000.
Yes.
So we're not giving them the money they asked for from the get-go. But I don't know what the real number is. I have not had time to dig into that.
That number's been consistent, I believe, right, Lisa? I mean, we've been talking about 9 or 10K for a long time, so that target hasn't moved.
We can ask the audience questions.
No, we're not allowed.
For budget, we technically.
That's why I wasn't looking at you. So I didn't want you to
Does the
tempt,
chamber have
I didn't
a
want to tempt
website?
you to answer and then run afoul
They
of like.
have this information on their website?
What's that?
Does the chamber have a website, and do they have this kind of information on the website, links to any of the pamphlets and things like that we have?
We do not. We do have we have limited tourism information on our website in the form of videos.
Okay.
But we do not have any documents.
Okay.
In the form of brochures or anything.
So is there a visitors section? There's no visitors section on the chamber website?
No,
Because you have, it's not, yeah, so I'm saying that might be the place, and we link to them or something like that, so it probably needs more look.
Well, my concern with having anyone else host the town's welcoming information is we don't have as much control of it. That's why I'm fine having them link to the town's website, but I am more uncomfortable giving anyone else this information for them to disseminate. And, I'm one of 6 votes on this, so I get it if I'm in a minority.
Yeah, no, so I think it's fair. I think let's pencil the 2,500 in for now and keep the discussion going, but because we got a whole list we got to go through here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we got to balance, because the 2,500, whatever we're talking about at the time is the one we want to do, and then we talk about the next one, and then the other ones go up and down the list as we do this.
Yeah.
So-
And I'm fairly certain, as is the recent past, we could probably find the 25. I think we're in agreement. We understand the request. I'm in support of the conceptually the value of the request. But what I don't want to be is here next year, somebody attends public audience and goes, last year you appropriated $2,500 and all you got was a static page with one-dimensional information that's a complete waste of taxpayers' money. It wasn't thought of, blah, 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 blah. We're going to hear that. And there's probably value to that if that's what occurs. But I would rather show the intent to support the value of the request with a little more work being done from the technology task force as far as a potential mock-up to show us what that is, what could that get us? And then if it's value, we see value in as a board, then we find that $2,500 after the fact.
I think it could be a nice collaboration between some of our town committees.
Sure.
Agreed.
Okay.
And remember, the Board of Finance in the past has not held us harmless on increases even for community support. So generally, when we increase these line items, they expect us to find the money somewhere else. So, because these usually get cut first when they go to the Board of Finance if we don't have a corresponding cut. I don't know what they'll do this year, but just remember that when we do this.
So I just want to see, would people rather walk through these potential increases and have this conversation, or we want to cover other items such as CNR first?
Let's just, now that we're on it, let's just put them
Keep
all up
moving
there.
through these.
And sure, if I could quickly. So what we've done for this evening, similar to past years, we do have an Excel spreadsheet prepared for you. So as you want to add items, potentially decrease items, we're going to keep that list going. And that way we can get an appreciation for, okay, if we make all of these changes, how does that impact the potential overall budget, the mill rate, et cetera. And so, for example, if what I think I'm hearing maybe is consensus for not the full 4,000, but 2,500 potentially, what we could do then is then go to the Excel spreadsheet and add that there as a possible increase to the budget. So that's sort of how I was envisioning we would work through the budget, is again, potential increases you want to add, we put to the spreadsheet. Similarly, potential decreases, we add to the spreadsheet, and that way you have a running sort of tally of potential changes. Does that sound good? Okay, great. So if we could just add a potential $2,500 increase for the chamber to that spreadsheet, that'd be great.
So the first three, the VNA, North Central Mental Health Board, and McLean's Meals on Wheels are all flat from last year. Is there any opposition, thoughts? Okay. We did have a presentation from Interval House. They're requesting a $1,000 increase. I wanted to see if there would be support in making that a $1,500 increase, so the full amount of would be $2,000.
I'll raise you, put 5,000 total there. It feels, I don't understand why we wouldn't even be at least being comparable to, everything we do around here tries to measure off benchmarking of our peer towns, which always seems to be impossible to do, but that's what we have for litmus test. But the fact that we're not even close to Avon, I don't consider Avon, but Glastonbury, or even Glastonbury, which is always our peer in sports. But the amount of time we call upon Interval House relative to them, we should be at least on par with them. To answer your question along Peterson Way, at least $2,500, if not more.
Agreed. Yeah, so for anyone watching at home, this is an agency that works directly with our social services, works directly with our police to serve, I think, nearly 24 of our residents every year. I don't want to get that number wrong if it is wrong.
Serve 20 people, yep.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Now, it's conservatively, that's to what is that's
what's known, yeah.
Registered, and so to speak, and known.
And these are folks that are in domestic violence crisis. These are some of the worst days of these poor folks' lives and their children.
And with the ability, with more money, can we avail ourselves with the awareness that such a program exists, so that we can capture more of these individuals who are on the cusp of service and not getting it. That's a big concern for me.
So I heard a number of numbers. So as we look at the other towns that we like to compare ourselves to, I would say that it ranges from roughly $2,500, up to 18.
62,000. I believe Manchester funds a police.
I don't think we could do the
police
65.
But there are several towns that give in the $2,000 to $5,000 range.
I think so, or they specialize. No, I think Manchester has a dedicated officer or resource in their department. No, Manchester, sorry. I think that's partially why that number's so high. But they've been okay.
I would be good with the 2,500, just because it's a step up, a nice step up from last time. They seem that they'd be very appreciative, and then we can look at it again next year, because we don't know yet where else we're going to get that out of the rest of the items.
I'd be supportive of 2,500.
Okay. Let's
start there.
Okay,
we'll
let's put that in.
Sure. So for the spreadsheet, what I'm hearing is that we will add 2,000 for Interval House, bringing the total to 2,500.
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Okay, Marie and Eric, I'm having a tough time hearing people, so I'm going to step off if you guys are all set with the chamber issue.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for raising that.
Thanks, Mike.
No problem, guys. Thank you very much for your time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, next I'd like to talk about SCTV's request for a $5,000 increase in their funding. A little bit of context on this one for anyone at home is that their business model is under pressure because people are cutting the cable cord, which is a big source of their revenue. So they've come to the town and the Board of Ed looking for a significant increase in their contribution.
I would be in favor of that increase. I think that there are so many programs that we use, and there's so much value to having SCTV.
I agree.
I've given a lot of thought to this one, and I struggle with this one, not because I have any doubts about about what SCTV delivers. But I don't think that our taxpayers are the solution to their long-term structural challenges. I think the way I look at it is the part that's a no-brainer to fund are the tapings of these meetings, these public meetings in shining light. When we asked staff to do just a preliminary estimate saying, look, what if SCTV went away and we had to do this ourselves? It would cost us a little less than $10,000 a year with some assumptions, not including the capital costs of the cameras, et cetera.
Which is not insignificant.
Which is not insignificant. So when I look at the contribution, I would say, well, I'm solid with about $10,000. I think anything above that I'd have tougher questions for, and I guess I could easily go along with raising our contribution by $5,000, but it would be with the message that I see this as like a 3 to 5 year thing while they look at long-term solutions. I don't see our taxpayers being the long-term solution, and that's just me.
That's consistent with the messages we've communicated to the ambulance, even though we then changed our mind later on that. So, but then we have to talk about the other organizations. I mean, we're not doing that with Main Street. We're not doing that with VNA.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, I wonder if.
I agree with you, and I agree with you in a vacuum.
So I would like to continue kind of to go through the discussion points of the force ranking of this list, which is basically what it becomes. Because I hate, this is, I know I'm gonna get a phone call, and I'm just not saying it correctly, I'm looking at the TV, but if we're investing in this is de minimis investment, where this is low, this is going to be a return to something. At one point, there's a critical decision to not fund, and it goes away potentially. And if we had the opportunity to spend money on something that is moving in the other direction of need, and we can start funding that now, that's the kind of hard decision we have to make. So if SCTV is in a fiscal crunch in 5 years, we can't increase our allocation to them, and it goes away, well then, somebody could say, well, you had 5 good years of TV, but maybe we could have 5 good, better years of the interval house or something else that we pick up now who's making a request. Is that,
I understand what
you're saying? I'm trying to say?
So we're going to put the 5 up there for now, but
Put
then
up there
look at it.
and look at everything else as well. Kind of the same way we looked at the chamber's technology allocation. It's there as a placeholder, let's keep moving with all the other.
Okay. Great. So again, I think I'm hearing as a placeholder for the spreadsheet, we'll add the 5,000 for SCTV?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's budget cutting elsewhere, right?
Yep.
Yes.
That's what it's gonna mean.
The Farmington River Watershed is requesting a $397 increase. I'm not recalling the rationale behind the $397.
I think they're just using like a per cap type of a formula, saying your population's increased, so we'd like to have an increased contribution from you.
Okay.
397.
Is there a
It's not a
presentation?
lot.
I
There's
don't recall
not-
reading your presentation here on that.
No, and the annual letter.
There is a,
Should
didn't
be
think
an
was-
yeah, there is one
application
in
from them.
there was all but the Main Street.
We just put the 397 as a placeholder and move on, please.
You can do that.
Fair.
Thank you.
And finally, the Chamber of Commerce,
Closed.
although we've just
We already
discussed that.
talked. Yep.
Okay. So are we
Can
going
I just want to ask on the chamber, so if we're taking part of their request away, so we don't feel that I guess that the needs are fully justified, or we're just saying this is what we can allocate right now? Because in their letter, they were talking about the move to the new facility and housing the visitor center, to cover the cost of the visitor center, and because they're now more visible, and just wanted to make sure that
That part of their justification is heard. We didn't hear that. That's a good point.
So I'm just saying that's the only, they didn't talk about the technology, they're just talking about that's what they needed for their increase. And so just before we take it away, let's just make sure.
Just to be clear, we're not taking anything
No,
away.
okay, their request.
You gotta be careful with your words here. We're not
Okay.
taking anything away.
But I think the addition, we glossed over the addition of what their
Why they
2,500
wanted it.
would go to, which is, I
Again,
think, about it.
Put 4,000 in as the placeholder, but my challenge, Wendy, is you gotta find 4,000 somewhere else.
Well, I'm looking somewhere else right now. So I understand that, and I'm not saying we have to give that, but I just wanted to address the reasons they asked for that. And I would say I'm fine giving less than that, but it's because of other issues, other concerns here or needs. But I just wanted to make sure we called out it wasn't technology related. So,
I see that point, Wendy.
thank you.
Okay. And finally, thought?
Lisa was just sharing, no one from tourism was available to come, but there was some interest in additional funding for printing of the brochures.
Yes, I believe Dominique talked to you.
Mark, it is in here, yeah.
Right. So we did receive a last-minute request from tourism. They did their best to put together a cost estimate to update the brochure that they have been using. I'm just using a round number. That would be about $1,200. Whether, you want to include that as an outside agency request, it's a little different. As a committee, we would most likely add that to the board and committee budget if we were to proceed down that path. Again, another possibility would be to consider that as part of a year-end transfer when we have time to sort of flesh that out a little bit better. But again, that did just, come on our radar over the last few days.
My initial thought was handling that as a year-end transfer, especially as we're thinking right now about moving more of this material onto our website and sort of what that looks like holistically before we start funding other strategies. This is something they've been asking for a long time. I'm conceptually supportive of it, but the late nature of the request, and having not seen anything up to this point, I feel like it's a little late in the process. I welcome others who feel differently.
No, I would agree with that.
Okay. So the last one we haven't talked about yet is the request from Main Street for a $5,000 increase. Really, this would be a restoration, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I'm very supportive of this one. Sarah Nielsen and Main Street had a phenomenal 2019 with some really big economic development announcements, including an expansion in Ensign Bickford, some work along Main Street with one of our larger developments here, which I hope we'll be able to have some announcements on soon. But it's been a very good year for Main Street, and I'm sometimes asked about, why do we fund Main Street at this level? And if we had to hire an economic development person, it would probably cost about twice that much.
At least.
So I think it's a good use.
And as a new person, I just questioned it, because there was no application in here at all. So I had there was no, in the original distribution, every other agency, no offense to Main Street Partnership, I just don't know that much about them. Every other agency completed the agency grant application. Main Street Partnership did not. So there was nothing to explain to me the reasons. We did get a addendum letter later, after the fact, from Brian. I also just look at $45,000. I guess it says what it goes to, but to ask for $5,000 reinstated in a time where we're now trying to give more money to Interval House and things like that, right? Do they need $5,000? And I can't answer that because I don't know the value of them, but we do have the Economic Development Committee, right? Which, have we had that all along, or is that relatively new?
We've had that all along.
Okay, we've always had that?
Sarah's been the staff person for that in the past. I mean, one of the reasons why we changed the Economic Development Committee is because Sarah would come in and tell the Economic Development Committee what was going on in economic development in this community.
Okay.
And the people on, don't get me started, but they're, not to mention, I think they've got, I believe, work plans upon work plans upon work plans upon details.
Yes.
Sarah, I'm going to reel me back in. I believe it's over the millions in grants that she's gotten this community through Main Street streetscape improvements and otherwise that has been a co-writer or a driver of the grant on. So that organization has been something that's had some pretty substantial horsepower to making not only the center zone, but Main Street from the south end of town to the north end of town have a pretty substantial voice with this board, this office, and our predecessors.
And they have been a substantial driver to this grant list growth.
Yeah.
So that's.
The number of meetings those people have that,
Yep.
I mean, Maria, you're meeting with Sarah constantly, and those folks, they're involved in just about every project that happens in this town. Often Sarah knows about it before, or the Main Street knows about it before anyone else does. It's quite a phenomenal group, and I keep saying Sarah, it's all of them. They do a really good job of taking care of each other in this community in a really proactive business way, finding each other tenants, helping each other find properties, all really good things to really support a culture of business down the Main Street.
And they've expanded. They now service and help every business coming into Simsbury. It used to be just Main Street, part of Simsbury, but it's the north end, it's the south end, anything. They help with the permitting process. They walk them through. This is what you're going to need to do in this town. You're going to have to get a sign permit. You're going to have to do this. So they give them the steps. So I think that is helping us so much as being a very welcoming town, business friendly.
So it's not just downtown anymore, it's
It
the
is
whole.
not. It's the
all of
whole town.
Simsbury?
Yeah.
Okay, and their function is much more involved and engrossed than the chamber is more of a membership and.
Correct.
They come at it from it's hard to
Different.
compare the two because they come at it from a different point.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Yeah.
so in your opinion, $50,000 is well spent to the Main Street Partnership over, I guess, the other requests? Well, I guess if we can make it work.
That's exactly what your key, add that in, we can make it work. There's other thing, we have to.
Because we're giving, right, other people more.
Yeah, one of the, I'll get on it, and I've been involved with some Main Street efforts, just from people they're asking for input or liaisoning between certain individuals or groups. And one wonderful things about Main Street is that it's the results of it. Well, first of all, their activity is it's a very active group. And the results are easier for me to see sometimes than some other groups. It doesn't mean the other groups aren't as effective.
Correct.
But sometimes it allows me to make more of a difficult decision and take more of a flyer because there's a little more tangible result there. And not doesn't at all diminish anybody else's activities or whichever, but it is, you can quite often point to, wow, that's a project that has their finger on it.
Yep.
And that's what people want us to be spending their money on.
If Main Street's involved,
Okay,
it
that's
gets
good
done.
to hear.
Yeah.
Keeping businesses in town.
Okay, thank you.
I could just
Maria?
quickly. And so to date, we hadn't been asking Main Street to fill out the application that the other outside agencies were, just because the relationship was a little different, and that they are partnering and working more closely on sort of direct services related to economic development with the town, almost sort of like a quasi-municipal agency. And so for those reasons, we hadn't been requesting the formal application, but if that is something that the board, would be, wanting in the future, I could certainly ask them to do that.
It's
but
this big.
We hadn't been to date.
It's an hour
so-
presentation. I mean, if we want to
Okay.
do that to refresh
Okay.
everybody, we can do it. I've heard it. But I mean, Sarah can get down to the line item on all of their work plans. It is a massive discussion.
Well, I guess if they're asking for an increase year by year, it would be good to have something documented in the packet.
Well, they're asking us to put back what we cut.
Well, I know that this year, but if next year they ask us
They've asked us for 4 years.
They've asked for that for 4 years?
Yeah, to put back what we cut. We cut them back when we cut everybody.
Okay.
We
So-
arbitrarily cut everybody.
So you're saying next year it'll just be it'll be the same 5,000, they won't come and ask for another 5?
If we give them 50, they won't ask us again. If we give them 45 again, they're going to keep asking us, just like the chamber's going to keep
Okay,
asking.
so if they ask for another increase, then we would like an application with the justification for the new increase?
Yeah, because that would be beyond the original scope
Okay,
of services.
that's all.
I think that's.
That'll
yeah.
make me happy.
That's fair.
Okay.
But yeah, we cut all of our community outreach by an equal
Okay.
haircut. I think it was, and we cut a lot of places that year because we simply had no choice.
Okay, thanks.
Great.
So it looks like we'll come back, we'll move back to this after we.
Exactly, when we come back to the
Yep.
summary spreadsheet.
Okay.
Great, thank you. All right. Shall we head back to debt service and capital?
Town manager's budget's a little bloated. We can get some.
All right.
Invite some savings?
And just to sort of kick off back to this topic, we have prepared for you a handout this evening. We did our best to sort of categorize the capital and CNR projects, whether it was sort of a safety-related project, whether or not it was, vehicles, infrastructure, equipment, just to try to help as we get to prioritization a little bit later this evening. From a staff perspective, if an item's a safety item, we would say that's a high priority. And from staff perspective, we would say that all other items are at a minimum a medium priority, since there really aren't any, with the exception of the potential open space acquisition, that there's really nothing new there. That's all just to maintain existing infrastructure or to replace it. Also at your desks, Melissa passed out, we did a summary of the 12 or so items that were raised during budget workshop. Staff was terrific and speedy, and we were able to get answers to most of those questions for you already this evening. So you can just take a look at that as you have time. There are a few items that still need further follow-up or analysis, but just want to thank staff for such a quick and speedy response today.
Ray, can I just ask a quick question?
Yes.
Now piqued my attention up there.
Yeah.
So we're transferring 303 in from bond premium on a one-time basis to soften the increase?
Sure. So I will jump into debt service. Thank you, Sean. So as I had mentioned at my presentation a few weeks ago, for the second consecutive year, debt service is our most significant budget driver. So about an 11% increase there. And what?
Can you just stop, just explain to everybody what that means?
Please.
That's the 7% number, right?
So the debt service, this is what we owe for principal and interest on already bonded projects.
So we don't have a choice, right?
Correct.
This is when we debated a couple weeks ago, the policy and everything else, this community is on the hook.
Is obligated to pay this.
To pay that back, so we don't have a choice on
That's
that
correct.
one unless we want to default.
That's correct.
Right, and a couple of years ago, the Board of Finance chose to lower the debt service ratio because there was cash against it. And when that number came down, it has put more pressure on us because those were used as one-time mechanisms to soften increases. And unfortunately, we now have to get that number back up. Because we talk about 7%, we're not actually paying 7% yet, right?
Yeah.
That's the theoretical number, but this is getting us closer to the 7%.
Are you saying because of that smoothing that they?
Yes, smoothing is a very kind word for it. So we traditionally, in the past, used 7%, whatever debt service was, and then cash to fill in, usually done to fund a prior year, to keep us spending roughly 7% every year, so that we didn't have cliffs and valleys, et cetera, and mill rate pressure. The Board of Finance then departed from that, and here we are. Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
It's really important because when we start talking about the overall mill rate and stuff and the decisions we make on capital, on CNR, sometimes that gets lost and confusing. So we didn't do anything other than approve projects that everybody had their eyes wide open, and we now have to service that debt.
That's correct. Right.
Sorry, I
And
just want to make sure we.
right. And to Sean's point, I know we've spoke a bit in the past about, there are ways, to sort of smooth the mill rate regarding capital so you don't have huge increases in debt service. And part of that is to build up a capital reserve. So we have, cash available to pay for smaller value capital projects. So we're not bonding for those. That's part of, what's contributing to our debt service. There were a few years where we were bonding for smaller value capital projects. And for example, last year's debt service increase was the equivalent of a 0.4 mill rate increase. Which was really substantial. And there are, again, ways we can sort of better smooth that by building up our capital reserve.
Again, again, because this is going to come up with the Board of Finance, and we're going to go round and round on it tomorrow night, and when we come back and reprioritize. We used to, and again, I'm sorry for being the old guy, we used to spend cash. So we didn't always, we did bond for some smaller items, but there was a history where we'd get to the end of the year and the Board of Finance would look at our list and there'd be 25 items on them and there'd be $600,000 in cash from the current year. They would take those 15 items or 12 items off of our CNR list and fund them immediately with cash from the prior year while still transferring money to the reserve fund. because that's where that 98, 99% collection number, 98.5 matters. So we were guaranteeing roughly $1 million going into reserves, and then when there was excess building permit fees, other changes, good results, they were using that cash to clean up small capital items, in addition to what we're doing now, which is the CNR money, and then cash and debt service in the following year. So is what Maria's suggesting is a more responsible way to do it, because then there's a guaranteed flow of funds in there. This was it was just the practice, and we all got used to it. And the problem is now that it's gone away, we fought through the interim years. Now we're trying to figure out which is the new practice, right? Yeah. So when Maria talks about this capital service account, it's really important. This was something that was approved by the Board of Finance, but it needs to be funded. And then it'll solve some of these issues. And again, it doesn't mean we can go buy every plow and truck we want to, but it means there's a more constant stream of cash to pay for this stuff and not incur interest. Right?
Great.
All right, I'll be quiet.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great.
This stuff is
great
there's a lot of
explanation.
moving parts to this stuff. So it's just when we look at 1 year and debt and everything else, this is where it all comes together.
Thank you. Thank you. So the next point regarding bond premium. So again, this is something as part of our most recent 2 bond issuances. We received what's called bond premium. So that lowers what's reflected as our true interest costs. So essentially what that bond premium can be used for in a very responsible way is to help to, again, offset future debt service payments. So you might recall Judith, our bond counsel, referred to it as you can put it into a mill rate stabilization fund, or you can put it into a capital reserve, and then use that bond premium to offset, some of those future debt service payments. So what we've done is proposed a transfer of bond premium that directly correlates to that particular bond issuance. And so, again, transferring out some of that bond premium money to cover some of that corresponding debt service. So we reflect that true interest cost. Our bond issuance, 2 bond issuances ago now from last summer, I believe was a little over 1.6% was a true interest cost, again, assuming that bond premium is used to offset that expense. The most recent one we did for Henry James, true interest cost was around 1.5%, but again, that's assuming the use of bond premium to offset those future debt service payments. So again, this one corresponds to recent bond issuances.
So, but I'm sorry, just step back. Yeah. It's 100% of the 304 is what your proposal is, you're saying, to move it over?
Oh, this is just a portion of bond premium. So we would continue to sort of draw down off of that in future years to continue to cover debt costs.
And then so it's a portion.
Correct.
And then just for clarity, it's held, the balance is parked where?
And the capital reserve fund at the moment.
And then so going back to Sean's, whenever.
Sermon.
No, not so. So the outlier years of whenever they were, where the methodology was in the light of the current situation, I'm sure it was justified and practical and responsible and correct. But in that situation where bless you, so we made that change to policy at that point. Was there these types of scenarios existing or not? I mean, can you say there was?
Sure. So
We didn't have this level of transparency with bond premium. That was all done.
Do you want to? I'll let Amy take this.
Prior bond premiums, it looked like all went into the general fund. So that's probably why our general fund reserve is so healthy right now.
Was that just an automatic practice? It came in the door. You put it aside right into that one.
Right.
Okay.
So
no discussion, no.
Right, and the reason why that was done, and it was actually done appropriately, is because if we put our bond premium in something other than the general fund, we have to monitor the interest rate it's getting or spend it within a certain amount of time. Otherwise, we have to pay federal tax on it. So if you put it into the general fund, it's considered commingled, and then there's no tax impact on the federal level. But what they could have done after they put it into the general fund is made a transfer of just general fund funds into the capital reserve to utilize that bond premium to offset future debt payments. And that's the part that wasn't done, and that's the part that we're recommending that they do now. Because when we pay out interest, we're paying it out at 4 to 5%. But theoretically, our interest costs right now are like 1.6%.
Right.
So the difference they pretty much give us up front in order to pay out later on. So we're trying to use that amortized bond premium over the course of the bond, say 10 or 15 years, so that it really does reduce our debt expenditures from year to year. Because when you put it all in the general fund, like Sean said, now you're eating that full 4 or 5% in your general fund without that help.
So, and what they were arguably from an accounting standpoint is it went into the general fund and then they transferred it back out as cash for capital.
Right.
So we were using it for capital items, but not, to your point, to
Right,
recognize
and
the
that's
true.
appropriate.
Yes.
But it's just way faster to spend it like that. You can spend
Yes.
it within 1 or 2 years. This, you're actually like giving yourself a benefit over the course of the 10 or 15 years of the bond.
Yeah, and trust me, I endorse this. I very much agree with the recommendation to move toward this. I think it's a much more stable way to do it, now that I understand
And just so you
how it
all
works.
know, this is actually going to be a conversation after your budget presentation to the Board of Finance on March 17th. They have allowed a portion of the fiscal year 19 issuance into the capital reserve. They have not approved that for the fiscal year 20 issuance as of yet, so that will be a recommended year-end transfer. So they're going to we're going to ask them to take their position as to whether we can do this going forward, or if they want to continue the whole, put it in the general fund and we'll figure it out later.
But just to layer on, and I apologize, but the 303 is a one-time. If that fund, if that bond premium was gone next year, there would be no 303 to put in there, and we would have to eat the increase in debt service
through some other
on the top line.
Yeah, through.
Correct.
You have to keep offsetting it once you start offsetting it. If you stop offsetting it or lower it or increase it, it has a budgetary impact.
Right, but we're recommending, and hopefully the Board of Finance will agree, we're recommending to keep that amortization going over the life of the bond, so that we don't have that issue.
I agree, but that's the thing where consistency, as long as Amy and Maria and Melissa are still here, we can all muck this up, but if things change like they have, that's where things get lost. And then all of a sudden, we see a big change in the debt service line item, and folks don't understand why. And we know you understand.
I'm struggling to find a better description, but would an ultra-conservative alternative here, and I'm not proposing, I'm trying to understand it from a perspective, would be to not move that 303 in, or 304 in, because potentially the dynamics of the performance in the future change. They don't return us to 304, but now we're locked into that type of true-up, that type of obligation. So is that?
I think that's a larger conversation really for the Board of Finance and how they manage the overall portfolio, how they manage the investment accounts, how they manage the reserve account. And that's why they keep debating 15, 16, 18, 20. That's the other lever here, Chris. If we were down in the 9s or 8s, we might not be doing this. So having the overall healthy balance sheet, and under Amy and Maria and Melissa's guidance, that's where they manage it. So at this point, I think the 303 makes sense because of all the other levers we still have to pull. We shored up the health fund last year.
Yep.
OPEB is going in the right direction. Pension plan's going in the right direction. All of our funds are in a really good or improving standing. And letting it sit in an interest account and getting 0.001 is not going to do us any favors right now. So this is, in their estimation, and I agree with them, the most prudent means to use this fund. And there still are funds from the other bond premiums that we can put in there. So this is a fund that's growing. And if we go down the road of capital like we're talking about with schools and everything else, presumably this is a stream of funds that will be in there. But if it runs out, then you guys change course and we can feather it in. It's no different than when we knew the Hartford was leaving and we left $1 million in designated fund balance to be feathered into the budget to reduce the mill rate impact. That was done, 5-6 years ago? At least that
Intentionally.
was the intent.
Yep.
So there's lots of ways the Board of Finance can pull the.
I just think it's an honest question.
No, it's a good question.
It'd be good. I know it's going to happen. In 2035, when none of us are on this board, somebody's going to say, back in 2020, the board made a decision to put this 301 forward. Now it's not there, and now we've got to correct for it in a.
You know what they're going to be saying? Thank God the Henry James issuance finally came off.
Okay.
That's what they're going to be saying. Just like we've been saying, thank God the high school issuance
So go
finally
on.
came off.
Keep on.
Great,
Thank you
sure.
for the input.
So just a quick reminder, we have done some work with our debt modeling, that 7% chart and the the line that y'all are used to seeing. One of the challenge, though, that we still have with that model is it doesn't include our smaller value capital needs, or what we would characterize as baseline needs. What we are starting to determine through developing our CNR plan is that our sort of baseline capital needs for those smaller items is probably closer to about $2 million a year. That still does not include technology. And we also have our facilities master plan that will be coming up. So our building infrastructure costs may change as well. But again, it's something that's still new. We're only into our second year of developing that 6-year CNR plan, but it is helping us to quantify what some of those smaller baseline needs are. And again, I think we talked about this, that we know that the debt service model is a bit starved for cash in some of the upcoming years. Great. I think we can go to the next slide.
Is it safe to say, Amy, our capital service, not our debt, our capital service is closer to 10%? The overall capital service. So we're spending roughly $7 million in debt service and the needs $2.5 million, getting us close to $9.5 million. If we were cash debt service, all the mechanisms for capital.
If I put it all together,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'd have to look.
I get rough number. I mean, that's the thing is we talk about this 7% number and that's debt service, and I'm not suggesting we move away from it, but it doesn't encompass the town's capital needs, which is the point you're making.
Right, it doesn't currently include the
Often
small
folks, they look at them one and the same, that the debt service is all of our capital needs, and that's not in fact true.
Yeah, it's fair to say that. Okay, thanks. I'm ready for the next slide. Yeah, thank you. So just recapping the revenues for the capital fund, and we'll jump ahead to the expenditures. Great, thank you. And then go to the next slide. So there are a handful of projects that we had proposed bonding for based on life expectancy and cost. One is our radio system upgrade. That would include our public safety radio system. We do have a few other users of the system, the Board of Education, Public Works, and the ambulance company. Again, just really want to credit the lieutenant and Melissa for their very good work on managing this project and through partnering with the fire district. You may recall last year this time we were expecting a project cost of about $2.5 million, and now we're looking at just over $1.2 million. So really incredible work on their part, and a great cost savings to the town.
That's phenomenal.
It's
I know we
amazing.
talked about it a couple of months
amazing.
ago, but that's the little stuff that I don't think folks in this community understand how hard you guys all work. That's 1.5% of the entire budget you saved. That's phenomenal. So thank you.
And the potential open space acquisition, proposed bonding for that at approximately $2.2 million. And we do anticipate presenting to the Board of Selectmen in open session at your March 23rd meeting about that acquisition. There's the high school project for the high school stadium bleachers at $850. And last year, you'll recall there was quite a bit of discussion between this board and the Board of Finance in terms of paving and whether or not to bond or not bond for it. And so we have recommended bonding for partial funding for paving at the same level for which we bonded for last year.
Where did we end up with them last year? Are they back on bonding or are they on?
Last year
Because they've gone both sides.
Yep, so it was a combination of cash and
That's
bonding
right.
last year, and so we've done a combination of cash and bonding this
Okay.
year and kept the bonding level at the same level it was last year.
Is it 605 we look at something.
60% of it.
Is it, yes, that's 60% of the?
Give or
Okay.
take, right? It's like a
About
million.
half.
Yeah, it's like $1 million, $1.2 million.
About a little over 1.2 million
That was, $1.6 million was to improve the roads, $1.2 million is to maintain
to
them?
maintain. Mhm.
That's what it is?
Yep.
Tom Roy gives a really good presentation on that, too. That one's at least an hour as well.
Right.
Does they tell you how many miles of paving are on?
Yeah.
And how often you repave?
And how there's scarification, there's all sorts of cool stuff.
Love Tom.
It's good stuff.
Come back.
I listen to this stuff.
Great. And then you might also recall from the presentation a few weeks ago, but just recapping that, we had proposed with year-end savings, transferring some funds into the capital reserve, so we would have cash for some of these smaller capital purchases. That did not occur, and we will have some slides coming up about potential fund balance use. So we are proposing a transfer of about $725,000 from the general fund reserve to fund our capital needs that don't technically need to be bonded for, again, smaller valued items. This is viewed upon more favorably from bond rating agencies. than if we were to use general fund reserves as operating budget or mill rate relief. So generally, again, if you're transferring to, for example, the health insurance fund reserve, which we did, that transfer this year was looked upon more favorably, transferring for capital projects. But again, if we are consistently using general fund reserves to offset the mill rate or for operating budget relief, that is, again, something that bond rating agencies tend to not look favorably upon.
And we haven't yet completed that, right? Because we haven't initiated the $1 million transfer that the Board of Finance wanted us to do, right?
Or, I'm sorry, which?
Of the current fiscal year, we've refused to
Correct.
initiate that transfer.
That's correct.
We've respectfully declined to initiate that
Right.
transfer.
That's correct.
Because we're going to come in ahead without it.
That's,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there's technically $1 million that was assumed spent last year that has not been spent.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So that's important too, when we talk about capital with the Board of Finance.
I think we'll touch on this more with our fund balance policy question, but the general fund reserve does in fact have capacity. This would reduce our borrowing costs in the long run and provide more cash capacity for us in out years. So before we jump into CNR fund, I don't know if folks had specific questions about our capital budget. It is a 6-year plan. That is tab 27. Thank you.
So-
Tab 27. If there were any questions
Yes.
about projects in the capital plan.
Yes. No. So I'm going to fully admit to the public right now on TV that I don't have my
Binder.
book, my binder. It's because it's in another car. The keys were not in it. It didn't get stolen, okay? It's just in New York City with my wife, okay? She took that mistake. I apologize. So that's why I'm tabbing back and forth. So what I'm missing from this year's proposal is, maybe it's coming, but where's our bar graph with the colored bars? Is that
That's not technically for us.
okay, but it helps me visualize 5 slides back, we talk about debt service. We talk about all these capital projects, 1.6 million. We talk about the 6-year plan, and then then we respectfully get in the room with the Board of Finance folks, and we say, my gosh, we're gonna put this budget out there, and we're wrestling with barbed wire on how to stay under that magical cap there.
Yep.
And so what I'm asking that is, if we take some of these projects on here, were not on last year's plan, is that correct? Fair to say?
The open space acquisition.
Yes. So
The radio was higher.
What's that?
The radio was higher.
The radio was higher, was the irrigation system the same price?
Yeah.
The same price, okay.
Yeah, that hasn't changed.
Yeah, so if we lay that, there we go, thank you.
We're over.
We're over. We're in more of an over than we were last year.
We're over for like a month and a half, right? Technically. The left-hand corner, if we were to do the full load,
Yep.
we're over for
Okay.
quarter of the year, half a year, whatever it is. And then we dip back under, and then we go back under. But that assumes that we do cash the next year, right? Give ourselves a break. Don't go
In
out-
23.
We don't go out the bond in 22.
So again, what is the likelihood, when it goes back to the whole concept of we're asking ourselves to be more thoughtful in our planning strategically going forward. Tom's Parks and Rec open space master plan is going to come back. And there's likely going to be something in there that tells us we need to pay for something.
Yep.
The school facilities master plan is going to come back.
Yep.
So where I'm going with this is that I don't know where to spend on what, because we have no room anywhere.
Correct.
So what year is when does this difficult conversation occur about us either, we're talking about mill rate reduction now, but there is, all signs point to not future mill rate deductions impossible considering what we're facing. So is this supposed to be taken in light of a different conversation with the Board of Finance Because I don't have the education of those answers around how to change the direction of how we're dealing with some of this stuff. Because right now, it seems like we're dealing with this approach the way we have been dealing with it in the near past. Am I being somewhat clear, or?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris.
Way too open-ended.
Right.
Can I jump in there for a second?
Sure, please, go ahead.
So, Chris, I appreciate you said that, because that was my sermon almost every year I've been on this board, is we keep running up the credit card, and we got to be thoughtful about it. So I think we're all on the same page, though, is we should be prioritizing what must we do, and we need to be honest about what do we want to do. And we can either be the stopgap for that, or the Board of Finance can be the stopgap for it. And we've traded that back and forth over the years. Sometimes we've sent things up that we wanted to do, and they've been approved, and sometimes they haven't been approved. And sometimes we've stopped them here and not sent them up when we knew we just wanted them. So it depends on how each of us want to approach this. There's nothing on here that's frivolous.
No.
There's nothing on.
Not at all.
Well, I take that back. There's one on here. But Mr. Woman, and I'll talk about that offline.
I look forward to hearing about that.
But the splash pad. But other than that, I mean, this board, everybody does a really good job. We're talking about plow trucks and sidewalks. These are our basic services. So I think what you're getting to, Chris and Maria, I apologize for jumping in, but this is what I wanted to get to, is at some point, we are going to have a conversation about mill rate versus a degradation in services.
Yes.
And they are constantly at battle with each other. So when we do not have the ability to raise the mill rate, we do things like cut hours at the library, which is terrible. Nobody wants to do it, but that's the choice we make. We don't just get to manufacture money out of somewhere, and we need to hire more police officers, but we can't do that because of the balance with the mill rate. And the same is true here is, again, just my opinion, the radio is a requirement. We need our public safety. That's what we're here for. If we don't fulfill this, then we might as well pack it up and go home. But then you start talking about the other stuff, and it's not as black and white, at least to me.
Versus must-haves versus nice-to-haves.
I mean,
They start to fall into that. Needs.
They do. And Maria, if you want to jump on, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Right. And so just in terms of, my approach to capital budgeting and looking at this challenge, what we've really been emphasizing with staff is, again, maintenance or replacement, repair of our existing assets, our existing infrastructure, our existing equipment. So we've been not coming to you really looking for capital investments that are nice to haves or expansions or nice, new and shiny. But again, really just focusing on the basics. We have whatever we have, whether it's our sidewalks, parks infrastructure, et cetera, but just making sure that we're maintaining those existing assets. We've also been really taking a hard look at what is staff capacity and trying to space projects out more appropriately. So not sort of a wish list of like, oh gosh, well, we really want to get to this, this, and this, but realistically, what can staff accomplish in any given year? So we're not sitting on a project for 2, 3, 4 years in some cases, and being good stewards of our, our taxpayers' dollars and making sure that if we're asking for that we can realistically accomplish it in the upcoming year or two. So those are some sort of just capital budgeting philosophies and practices we've implemented. And then Chris, again, sort of coming back to, I know this board has been having conversations for several years with me and the budgeting team now about also, again, building up our cash, capacity for those smaller purchases. So we're not continually bonding and we're not building up, more and more debt service. And for me, I think that is a long-term strategy that we can implement. Again, if we can build up our cash capacity for those smaller items, we're not borrowing. That's going to free up more capacity in out years for the larger projects and the things that we have to do with our buildings, with our parks, with our school facilities. And again, we just need to, be good about trying to build that up and or building up the capital reserve through things like capital project closeouts or year-end savings.
Yeah. And just the further challenge, Chris, as you know, when you talk to, it depends on who you talk to. If you talk to somebody that's interested in the schools, they want us to put it all in the schools. If you talk to someone else, they want us to put it all in the greenways. So depending on who you speak to in this town, all of this stuff is a priority.
Sure.
And that's one of the challenges we have up here is how do we share that message with, we can't do the greenway and renovate a school and pave everything. We can't do it all in the same year and sometimes even in the same decade. And that's one of the challenges is we joke around about the past of the town and Board of Ed would take turns. We would have a big one that would come down the pipe and we would respect each other's space and make sure that both the big priorities got done. And again, not fill in with small stuff in the meantime to jeopardize the ability to get the real stuff done that we needed to.
Yeah, I just, for me, again, I just me pontificating, and you guys know I like to do that, but the reason, what runs through my head is that sometimes it's just so incongruous to be talking, for me, it's incongruous to be talking about managing to a visual, at the same time, 45 minutes ago, talking about $2,500 or $3,000. It's like, I can't, it's like, why don't we have $2,500? So that's why my frustration is. So I apologize. I just want to get that out there.
I'm with you. I feel you.
Just in general, like first time doing anything capital. So I know we're going to talk about like what we maybe decide we shouldn't do this year, right? Or push it off. That's part of
Often the Board of Finance wants us to prioritize our capital.
Okay.
Yes. So to get us off track. That's what we got to do.
So anything with
prioritize, but then you have to also look at next year, what's coming up next year, because if you're not going to do it this year, and next year it shows 2.4 million more, right?
Yep.
So that means that might have to shift out, or so.
I'll tell you though, things that get pushed out have a funny way of disappearing sometimes though,
Yeah.
depending on what you push out. Not always. Henry James didn't die, but other things, when you push them out, like the senior center,
Right, that's
all of a
out.
sudden, now it's back. It hasn't been there for a while.
Oh, it's rolled back in like but it's still out like 4 or 5 years, right?
It is.
So
But
it's not really fully back.
No, but like the Apple Barn renovation's gone, right?
Yeah.
So,
That's been $1 million, $2 million, $3 million bogey that's been hanging out there for a while that now moved along.
and then we don't know yet, go to referendum next year for the proposals for the schools, that's gonna have to start coming into play in the next.
That won't be just next year though.
No, but-
I'd be surprised if we have a bond package for next year. It'll probably be
The year after is what they said.
Also with that,
22.
Wendy, is our town facilities master plan. We don't
Right,
have
that
that
hasn't-
yet.
Right.
That's why I mentioned that. That
Yeah.
hasn't even come into
Correct.
play.
So we
yet.
have
I
to
mean,
keep that in, yep.
The decisions we've already made, guys.
I don't know what that picture means. I
So
can't
the
really read.
brown is existing debt,
Yeah.
right? The yellow, the mustardy color is what you guys just went out for, right?
No. So the black is the existing debt, and then above that is the fiscal year 21 issuance. And then above that, in the pink, is the second half of the Henry James issuance.
So we're talking about the mustard tonight?
Yeah.
Or are we talking about the light, or the lilac?
You're talking about, yes. The lilac.
The lilac, because those projects are already approved. Just because they're bonded doesn't mean they weren't approved. That's the funny thing
So it's
about
like
it.
this purple color,
Yeah,
not
that's
this
what we're talking
liquid.
about right now.
Yeah.
So everything underneath that is already approved projects that we have to go out to bond for.
And that's why Sean was saying we don't have room.
We don't have room already.
Yep.
But
And that doesn't-
when we approve these today, Amy doesn't go out for them for a couple of years. Right.
But I think it's really more, it's more visually arresting for me because we know we have, I don't know, I don't mean to, I don't know the 1980s, 70s, 80s, 90s, what kind of strategic planning around big stuff occurred. I don't know how much of that, but it seems like right now we're having it's a massive convergence at the same time of either overdue or a lot at once.
Yes.
I don't know. So so what it means to me, the reason why I say that is actually probably, I'm thinking it's more realistic than it ever has been as far as the reality of the crunch there.
The crunch, yeah, I was just gonna say the crunch.
Who knows? Okay, I got you off topic.
No, this is the
a very
topic.
relevant topic, 'cause
This is it.
This is what we need to consider when we talk through and rank these projects. So do we want to rank all the Bs?
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you want to do ranking now for capital and then come back to ranking for CNR?
Yeah.
Your preference? Okay.
I think we should, just because if we introduce CNR right now, we're going to forget everything we just talked about with
Yeah,
capital.
I think that's
At least
good.
I will.
Okay, but, yeah.
And I'll just keep talking because that's all I do, again, the radio has to be number one, guys, in my opinion. We cannot jeopardize public safety, and we're long overdue to do that radio anyway. These guys have saved us a ton of money, and I think that case has been made.
Nobody will ever fault us. Nobody will ever fault us for doing this right?
I don't care if they do.
But if and when we ever had somebody have an event, you gentlemen correct me, an event where there was an unresponsive situation because you literally couldn't hear somebody, and that's what you guys have told us. There are times when your radios go dead and your officers are essentially on their own. I will never be able to answer that, request. When somebody turns it over in some FOI piece and says, this is what happened, and you guys had a chance to fix it.
Yep.
That's more important than the golf course irrigation system, but that's the kind of things that we're charged with. First is safety.
Yep.
And stewardship, right?
Yeah.
That's why I can't think of
I mean,
that.
to me, that one is heads and tails above everything else.
Yep.
I know we're talking about the open space acquisition at our next meeting. I think that one is also, this is an offensive move, or maybe it would be a defensive move that we would be making. If that open space becomes homes, we would be building another elementary school. So I think you can very easily say that this makes sense for a lot of reasons, but it's also spending some money to save money.
It does. I think we ought to get creative, though, with the Board of Finance to see if that $1 million I mentioned before, there's lots of ways to skin that one. And if they want a bond for it, they can. But I think if we talk through the merits of that project and there's at least some unanimous consent to get it done, I think we can put our creative minds together and figure out how to pay for that one.
I'd be in favor with that.
I think it's really, really important, but I think we need to talk through it with the Board of Finance on how to do that one.
From a process standpoint, does this become public and then we have the conversation with the BOF, or are they, okay? So it's not preemptive that you open them to discussion? No.
And we're not intentionally hiding anything here,
No,
but
it's
we've only
process.
had this discussion in
Yeah.
executive session, and it would be inappropriate for us to bring it out right now without a full accounting of what we're talking about.
Right, and just again, the timing of that potential acquisition and budgeting, we wanted to make sure that we were being responsible and at least had a placeholder in the budget in the event that
You've done it
this
the right way.
board and decided to proceed with it.
You've done it the right way. I do think paving is number 2, though, the 600K. So it's got tar, LoCip B, and GF in there. So the 1.2 million.
Oh, okay.
I think for me, that's a number 2, because again, public safety roads.
Oh, because
Which
that
item
is
is this
partly
one?
bonded, got
It's
it.
down under facilities management.
It's not under just B, so
No,
that's what we were
but
talking
the
Right,
B,
it's a
the B
combination of
portion of it,
everything.
to me at least, is number 2 from the bonding side.
Well, again, that's a safety,
It's what we're here for.
yep.
Well, then would you say sidewalk too? Is
I
also-
put the sidewalk very high because it's part of our sidewalk master plan. It's to contribute $200,000 a year. So if we differ from that, and that would be a conscious decision, but it would be deviating from that plan.
So
Right.
that's general fund, though. That's
Yeah, we were
that's
just talking about
cash.
B,
I'm just talking about bonds.
bonding for the moment.
Because remember, we make a recommendation on how to fund this stuff, and then the Board of Finance ignores it and funds it how they want to. So
Stuff with B's next to it.
Right, so
they're smart. They know what they're doing.
the only other projects that were recommended for bond funds besides the open space acquisition, partial paving, radio system, was the bleacher project.
Somebody
Did
else
we-
want to talk about that?
Well, Chris, you asked for the breakdown to separate out the
Yeah, I
press
saw
box. Is that in the sheet that we?
It is.
Oh,
It is,
I didn't
but
get.
Pretty nominal.
Oh, so it doesn't make a big difference.
Yeah,
Where's that? That's not on.
That was on the handout
Yeah.
that we passed out this evening with
Yes,
the budget
okay.
We have to send it up.
flagged items.
It is ours.
Oh, here it is.
We own the entire capital plan.
Oh, it's minimum.
Amy, procedurally, right, the Board of Finance item, or excuse me, the Board of Ed items can't go to the Board of Finance without us sending them right there, from a capital standpoint, because we control the capital. But we have to, if we don't forward all the projects, we said it differently, only the projects we forward go to the Board of Finance. So if we don't take action on the Board of Education, the planning doesn't go.
Right, because you guys make the resolutions.
Correct.
so if we don't push it forward, it can't be presented in by some alternative form or.
Well, ironically, it's going to be presented tomorrow night by the Board of Ed.
Well, that's,
Get on there.
yeah, but it's being presented for the narrative. It's not being, okay.
I have a question on this.
Sure.
We talked about press box and different items. Did we talk about safety?
That's a good question. 'cause
Okay.
It said safety, but it didn't explain.
So I'd like to know if the existing bleachers are safe, I guess is one of my questions. And another question would be, have they been inspected? That's somewhat of a place to, go ahead.
In the conversations that I've had with the chair of the Board of Finance, I think that structural integrity is a concern of the current bleachers. I can't speak to their inspection and.
Okay, because none of that was.
It was safety and accessibility. Those are the two
Oh.
reasons what were brought forward.
Yeah, so right now they're not ADA compliant.
Okay.
Yes.
And then they've had some repairs that they foresee getting worse.
I mean, if they're unsafe, they should be torn down immediately. So if they're that unsafe, tear them down.
I don't know if they've been inspected. All I
But
know is that
with
they've
all
had
due respect
repairs
to the
to
Board of
them.
Ed, if they're that dangerous, then they need to come down right now. Because we can't have that liability. So if the Board of Ed is making the argument that they are that unsafe, then they need to be shut down immediately. Because we're the ones that hold the liability for that.
Is that?
No, they're just.
It's a necessity. It has to be done within the near future.
What does that mean?
Right, and.
From what I was told, within the next year. They could probably make it one more year.
I think it's exacerbated by the fact that we have a successful football team putting more people on the bleachers. Yeah.
Well,
1 year.
No, but that's
Yes.
a trap. That's a.
They haven't been good since my uncle was the captain. It was 1985.
I think we have to look at this for all of the residents. And I don't know that all of the residents use the football field and use those bleachers. Again, I would come back to safety. So I think unless we know that they've been inspected or what needs to be done to keep them safe until this is decided. None of that was talked about.
Okay, so here's the way I look at it, and here's promotional. There's me at a football game in the bleachers this year with my son, wearing my Simsbury hat, okay? So, are we discussing, or do we need it, or can we afford it? Because, once we're proven that we need it, what I mean is we need it, well, there's three things. We need it because there is the component of this, the community that needs it to complete the experience of an athletic event. All right, that's the need, I think, that's one need. Then there's we need it, a new one, because the old one is safe. And then the third part is, but can we afford it? So once the first two are proven, when will we ever be able to afford it, though, considering what we're under? Which is,
we're renovating 5 elementary schools over the next 2 decades.
Well, this number impact is included in that curve right now, correct?
It is. Yeah.
So whether we move it next year, or so we push it back next year, till next year, until we get the proof that we need the new one because it's unsafe.
And we
Then-
do the facilities master plan, and we have the schools.
To me, I don't know that this is one that is, unlike the Apple Barn, I don't know that this is one that's ever gonna really go away because we're either gonna tear it, you're not gonna not have a bleacher there. That impressive of a facility, right? So we have to think about the fact that it's going to be coming. It's going to come this year or next year or the year after. I hope that we are in that mindset.
And then you have the visitors bleacher coming 3 years down the road, so.
Oh, we don't care about any of
No, I know, I'm just saying that's not gonna go away either.
Can we do the home bleachers for the same price as the visitor bleachers?
Yeah, but they're a little.
My
bit
frustration,
shorter.
guys, honestly, is, Chris, what you said before, is if we look at this thing in 1 year increments, we make bad decisions, and I feel like that's what happened here. We let a $20 million project go through that included a $5 million amphitheater. And I'm not gonna sit here and entirely second guess that, but if you're telling me that somebody's gonna get hurt now and I need to spend $1 million on this, then we should not have built a $5 million amphitheater. We should have renovated the school, the tech ed rooms, and we should not have added $5 million of amphitheater on there.
Totally agree.
And what I'm frustrated with is now my problem to solve the Board of Ed's problem because they didn't deal with the unsafe bleachers there and instead prioritized an amphitheater over safety. These bleachers have been past their useful life for more than the last 5 years. And now all of a sudden, we got to spend $1 million on them. That's my frustration is, and I'm not trying to pick on the Board of Ed, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but this is what happens when we make these choices. And we can talk about the amphitheater as a must-have, but I'm sorry, an amphitheater compared to bleachers for safety reasons is not comparable. And again, I bear the responsibility because I sent it up without that check. So I think we should do the same thing here, is I generally do defer to the Board of Ed and let their projects go up to the Board of Finance for debate. I haven't killed a Board of Ed project at the Board of Selectmen level. Because again, they do go through the vetting. It's easy for me to sit here and make all the accusations I made about crew teams and everything else. That's not fair of me. So let's put it on our list, in my opinion, as fourth. Because I don't think it's ahead of our other 3 projects, and let the Board of Finance vet it from a whether they can afford it or not standpoint. Because this is important for us to keep in mind, but it's not our job.
Fair enough.
Is that fair?
I'm not going to stop that methodology, but I'm just going to say for the record, we know we're going to be approving this at some point.
Yeah, we gotta, that's my thing,
Okay,
is we need to be transparent with the Board of Finance. They gotta pay for this at some point. If we kick the can and don't send it up and then ram it down their throat next year, then I feel like we've screwed things up.
Fair.
Let's put it up there and let them decide how they wanna pay for it. But again, they need to be aware of the safety issues. If we don't pass it, then they don't even get the debate. Is that fair? I know it's completely counter to what I ranted about on Saturday.
To the larger point, though, about wanting to plan, that's why we're doing our town facility study in conjunction with the school's facility study, so this time next year and the year after, we can have that holistic conversation.
A bigger picture.
Because, the same thing is, we pushed off the senior center, and now we can pay for a police radio. We made hard decisions at this board's level, and everybody needs to do the same thing, so.
Or you wanted to
Yeah,
say something?
I just want to make sure we're recapping. So for capital projects with bonding, we have the radio system ranked at number 1, paving at number 2. What I was a little unsure of hearing is that, are we saying that bleachers are number 3 and that for open space, we want to research other funding mechanisms? But would open space become number 3 if other funding mechanisms weren't available? Would that change?
3 is my opinion, because I think that has town-wide impact.
Yeah.
So that's number 3 regardless, and then bleachers.
My opinion
Okay.
only. I'll defer to the rest of the board.
If folks agree with that,
I
we
want
would
to
rank
see
that
it's
as
like
number
in a
3.
different category.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agree, Eric.
Ran it like in a
But
parallel.
if we do that, though,
If we had to rank it, I would put it 3rd here.
Okay, and then bleachers as the 4th.
because again, that has impacts on the school system, number of residents, et cetera. et
And we
cetera,
have
et
to I hate to be saying we're leveraged, but we are sort of in a unique time position that I hate to be I hate to be grave to the public, but let's say that the town, we don't want to miss a window, and that's the leverage, right? But it's not, but if the bleachers came back, and listen, I want people to hear us, if the bleachers came back and somebody said they're unsafe, then what we could do is we could say, okay, close the bleachers off, nobody goes in them, and then next year, we help you with that challenge. We don't really have that luxury with the open space scenario that we're in.
Right.
That's true.
Correct.
That's true.
There's no pushing that.
And again, if they are that unsafe, then somebody should close them. And if they're not, then leave them open.
And the
but
football team
they're
is so good.
I hope they are
One
good.
year of bleachers is not going to stop the upward trajectory. I'm telling you, this
Don't jump-
project,
don't jump
we're going to
on
be
them.
Texas before you guys know
Don't
it.
jump on them.
God.
We got through that expeditiously. That was 4 projects.
And so do you want to move on to capital projects that are cash? And do you feel a need, I guess another question just would be a high-level question. Do you feel a need to prioritize projects that aren't going to be funded with general fund cash? So for example, Town Aid Road or other grants? Do you want to just focus on prioritizing the remaining capital that we had recommended paying for in cash?
I do.
Let's start there.
Because we don't need to prioritize Town Aid Road unless one of those projects drops down into Town Aid Road or otherwise.
Okay, so it's a
But
small.
can we just, I'm sorry, just, can you just give us the quick 30 seconds on where all the buckets of money are?
Yes.
Sure,
Please, thank
sure.
you.
So, okay, so we've covered bonding. We have proposed, again, cash for a couple of the capital projects. That is a small recommended transfer to capital reserve. Also for cash is part of our general fund contribution to paving, the Public Works Facility paving and storm drainage project, and sidewalk reconstruction. And then the 500,000 for the district network infrastructure. Those are the handful of projects we are recommending, either again, general fund reserves, general fund cash.
So general fund reserve means they have to transfer money out of reserves to pay for it.
That's correct.
General fund cash means it's part of the debt service line item, and they're going to use cash for it?
Well, it's just included in the operating budget for fiscal year '21, so we're not pulling from reserves.
Which cash?
Yeah, it's cash, it just impacts this year's mill rate. Whereas the reserves, there is no mill rate impact, because we're using stored money from prior years.
Okay. And that concept, the cash one, is the one we're talking about, we're building that up to the 2 million of cash?
No, so that's completely separate. So the cash from the operating budget is the in-between, so that they have that 6.7% line. So whatever our debt is, that's the amount of cash that gets you to that 6.7% line.
Yep.
That would sit in the operating budget. The general fund reserves is your general fund balance. The capital reserve, which is what you're talking about building up, that's different. That has nothing in it other than what we're recommending is bond premium to offset future debt.
So the 6.7 is not fully utilized with bonds and interest right now, right? Repayment? So that 500,000 is the capacity
So
that gets us.
theoretically, for capacity, we have 1.4 million.
Yep.
But if we did that, that's a huge impact to the mill rate. So we reduced that down to what the general fund potentially could handle, which I guess is the 555 if we look.
But the concern here is, and I don't want to give away the playbook, is if this gets struck, we're losing $500,000 of cash for capital, and the mill rate, or the budget doesn't go up by that 500,000 that we saw on the first slide. Right? That's an option the Board of Finance could take. They could leave the debt service line item lower.
The 304?
I don't understand.
Go back to Maria's first slide.
It was 304.
No, the 500. The 304 is coming out of
the bond.
Okay.
The one on the top there. That
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
548.
Yep.
That doesn't have to happen, right?
That's
our commit. That's our
500's
commitment.
on top of that.
That's just debt service.
That's our committed debt service.
On top of that.
So we're going up $1 million.
But we're not going up $1 million. It's so.
We're maintaining the.
Right, so it's two different things. So the debt service, that's our actual debt. We have at like 11.14%.
Understood.
So
Which
then-
is 6.4, 6.4%, right? 6.45, whatever it is.
No, if you go back to that, so for fiscal year '21, we still have cash capacity. This is the last year that we have any cash capacity under that 6.7% line. So basically, we took the cash capacity that we had, which was like 1.5 million, whatever I just said it was, and then we put it in to our operating expenditures, and then we took what we needed for cash. We looked at the mill rate. We said that's too much. We said we're gonna take part of funding out of general fund reserves to help the mill rate.
So with that 548, inclusive of existing, of prior debt, last year we budgeted what for debt service, and this year we're budgeting what for debt service?
Can I just put my spreadsheet up? So
Yeah,
easier
sorry.
to-
I wanted to make sure I was looking at the right number. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
The reason I'm doing this is because it's gonna I think it matters what we do with this cash stuff.
It was nice as
I promise
your
I'm
scene
not wasting.
tonight.
No, you're not.
I
You're
don't
not.
think I'm wasting anybody's time on this. I'm not trying to manage to a mill rate number. I'm just trying to manage to what.
So there's the debt service and the capital, which
Yep.
is that 6.7% line, which
Yep.
is your 5.9, and then this year it's 6.5, so a $614 increase, 614,000.
Right.
Now, if we go to just expenditures, you'll see for debt alone, our budget is 5.2 million, and then we're going up to, well, that's not accurate. get rid of that 304 because that was for the teacher's retirement. So we're at 4.9 and then we're asking for 5.4.
The difference being 540 to 540.
Got it.
Right.
So where's the cash?
So the cash
So
is down.
the 5471 minus 4922 is the 548, right? Okay, that's the delta?
There it is.
Minus
Yeah,
that.
okay.
So where's the cash? The cash is there.
The cash is here.
And cash goes away.
Nope.
No, that's the her point.
So the cash goes up too.
Yep.
So both of those rolled in, go back to the budget, mill rate worksheet? Or 6.5? Or that's the 6.5 number.
Right, so that's 6.5, but then don't forget we included that teacher's retirement under debt service, so.
It's actually, it would be 6.8 on a year-over-year basis. Because we get benefit of that 304 coming out.
Right, so.
So it's actually a 1.8 increase?
So if we put the $300,000 back in, it's 614 increase,
But if we take it out, it's a,
$900,000.
right, so, but only 548 of it is required. So my point is the cash we're about to talk about now is not required and is contributing to that line item going up.
Yes.
So if we took that cash out, what would it be? By no means am I suggesting we do this.
So we took out the cash,
You take the 550 from 614, right? Left with 65,000. It's a $65,000 year-over-year increase.
we think 65,000.
Because the change right there says 614.
Yeah.
So if you back the cash out of it, which is not required,
Hold on. It's 13. I do a different formula.
trust me, this is ridiculous.
You still get to explain it.
There. If we don't spend that $500,000, that's what happens to the mill rate calculation.
Right, but if you're not spending, yeah,
I'm
theoretically.
not suggesting we do that, but that's what the Board of Finance is gonna look at. They're gonna make you do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Because this cash is not required.
Okay, but is this in the cash, the cash that you're talking about, is that the same cash that Amy alluded to that next year goes away?
No, that's different cash.
Okay.
No, there's the 308 cash, there's the 550 cash, and then there's the reserve cash. So go back to the other presentation. There's 3 buckets of money.
Was the third one the million?
This is why I like the old way. It was much simpler with 416 and CNR, and we were done. I get why we do this, but it makes it more challenging to do the math. And then
It's more complex.
this is why we need to prioritize everything, because this is the number that gets monkeyed around with. And then all of a sudden, if we don't have the right things in the right order, really important stuff gets.
Are you saying, and you're not saying it lately, monkey around in the way to make something work that might not otherwise?
If the Board of
be as
Finance is
pretty?
managing to a mill rate,
Yep.
then yes, that's the line that'll get changed.
Yep.
If I was on the Board of Finance, that's the number I would change. Go back one. So, so the reserves we're asking for a transfer out of reserves, 724, not in that calculation we just looked at. Not inclusive. The 555,550 is in that calculation we just looked at. That's where it went from 614 and a positive down to a decrease in the debt service line item. Because it is not required to pay back debt.
Right, but so if you're gonna go with that, you're gonna have to get rid of the mill rate contribution since we're not paying for that capital anymore. And then that's what it does.
Again, not suggesting we do any of that. Just trying to set it up so that why are we painstakingly going through this discussion? Because we've got 50 items in cash that we've got to now talk about. And they're going to matter, because if that number goes from 550 down to 250, or it goes up to 750, I don't know what the Board of Finance is going to want us to do there. But that's a direct mill rate increase.
Because you were saying we're
Every dollar
looking
we
at,
put in.
so this this capitalization list in front of us is, we could be basing it on 3 different numbers, 7, 5, or 2.
Right.
Having to spend, so to speak.
Correct. And there's no guarantee they're going to let us use cash out of reserves either.
That's true.
All right, so what is the town manager proposing how we look at this?
Back to the way it was before.
Yes,
All in,
right, exactly. So in my professional opinion, what we proposed in the manager's budget, I felt was sort of the most, responsible, looking at revenues, fund balance capacity, potential cash capacity. And so again, the proposed budget came out at about a 0.01 mill rate with what we've presented for capital.
Okay.
So essentially a flat mill rate with how we propose structuring everything. But that's again before adding any potential extras into the budget. So right now, again, this particular funding mechanism that we've presented, the mill rate was about a 0.01 increase.
Okay.
So back to the mill rate worksheet.
Should I put back to the way it was?
Yeah, could you? Sorry. Thank God for you. So there it is. So there's the argument, right?
All right, yeah.
So I mean, you do all that for the exercise of understanding what it's going to do to the mill rate, which is important because it's arguably going to do nothing to the mill rate. And what it's going to do is preserve the assets in this town. We're buying plow trucks and police cars and things that we need.
Sidewalks, roads.
So with that, I think we should save some time and send this to the Board of Finance as is. Because I think you've done a nice job of prioritizing it with safety and vehicles, professional services, infrastructure, equipment. I think that really does speak to itself.
But for clarity, for public's purposes, you're saying that with the expectation that we accept the other ways of the other funding requests here in the buckets, in the ways that they're asked for. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So just the way the cash contributions that I just dragged us through and went through the 4 different ways we're paying for cash, we're to get to the point of we can spend hours on this and dive through it and everything else, but the town manager and staff believe that these are the priorities from a safety of vehicles or professional services and infrastructure.
Yep.
And we have the right to challenge all of those, but at the end of the day, we're putting forth a really responsible recommendation to the Board of Finance, which we can go through the exercise of moving a whole bunch of cash around like we just did, and we are not costing the taxpayers any money. And I'm not saying that's the bar we should strive towards, is they should be the right projects. But again, the professionals say they are.
And because of the way that they're being funded, I want to say this correctly, because of the way they're being funded in this proposal, is why we're not looking at them in such a manner as we did the ones that are bonding, because their funding in this way will not affect the mill rate.
As directly.
Is that fair to say?
That's the way I look at it, yes.
Okay, for the public? Why we spent a certain amount of time narratively rationalizing, considering part of these projects versus the other half of these projects.
Yeah.
So the bonding, right?
Yes.
To recap what you just said, so the bonding items could potentially change the mill rate, whereas these items.
In the future.
They both change the mill rate, but again.
They're funded, they're funded in different, they affect the mill rate in a different way because of the funding vehicle that allows us to move forward with them.
Yep.
I'm comfortable with saying that, I mean, these are basic things that we need to do to maintain the infrastructure we have in our town.
We ask for every year.
I mean, is it fair to say that we prioritize all of the safety items at the top?
Yeah.
I would feel
I think the top half of
more
this list
comfortable.
is in order of my priority.
Through the vehicles?
Yeah.
Yeah, with the exception of the ice rink mechanical control panel, I think that makes its way up. I wouldn't want them to, I wouldn't want them to cut that.
Just a quick question.
Yep.
The professional services, does the compensation and classification study, is that something that has to happen this year? We want it to happen
We
this
haven't
year?
done it in 350 years.
Okay.
So-
There's other mechanisms that we're doing along the way,
Right.
so.
The only downside if we push it out again is we might lose the opportunity for incorporating that study as part of the next round of contract negotiations, which would then just delay potential further implementation to 3 collective bargaining agreements from now. So again, that's just sort of the downside, is that we might lose that window of opportunity to be able to do it next round of CBA negotiations.
Yeah, I think we're right now, right or wrong, the issue of employee equity is being raised in certain circumstances, and this is maybe money spent, unfortunately, to avoid more money being spent for some other reason. And there's value in having this, I believe, done.
Yeah.
I agree, it's the right thing to do.
And I wanted to talk about I want to go back to one of the things on the proposal. Tom, I'm looking at you. You may or may not, don't tell you because I'm dragging you out.
You want to have a truck?
Okay, no. Dr. Rinaldi said something tonight that struck a chord with me, and maybe just think, I'm just asking just for us to think, the siding project. And Orlando the other day mentioned that it hadn't, not all of them, but at least one of them had been done in 6 years, right? And that if we were doing this correctly, we should be doing it in every 3 to 4 years. I don't necessarily think that the money that's being spent, what's the money he's asking for?
Which building?
They all of them.
Between 20 and 35.
Okay,
Depending on the building.
Which is like it's 40,000 just for talking points, all right? So it's 40,000 for all of them. I don't think much of that 40,000 is being done for preventative in the sense that nothing's being fixed. So that cost is real essentially now every 3 or 4 years.
If that's the schedule we've been on.
We've been on 5 to 7, he
Right,
said.
we've been on 5 to 7, you want to accelerate it to 3 to 4 years. Now, one of the comments to do it correctly, so we've got to find this every 6 years, okay? You're going to come back.
No, you're going, but keep going.
So one of the comments that Orlando mentioned was maybe we shouldn't even have had shingles in the first place. Now, this is the kind of way that I'm thinking. I love those shingles. I have shingles on one of my homes because I think they're fantastic. And I've understood that that's going to cost me a lot more going forward. What is the cost of replacing them with something that's not as cool, not as beautiful, but doesn't cost us the next 20 years $120,000, $80,000?
You don't have a solid number on that, but what I was told, two of these painting projects would pay for the siding at the clubhouse. I think 50,000 would do the siding at the clubhouse and that kind of composite cement board that's popular now. I 100% agree with you. If it was my call on siding these buildings, it wouldn't have been shingles because we'd be doing this all the time. You'd want something on a public building that would last longer. We've had this conversation.
And I know that
we weren't here when those were decided. So.
And I'm not talking about I don't want I don't want to take the tenor of my voice to say that vinyl siding is not attractive.
And I'm not saying vinyl,
but I have hardy plank. I spent a lot of money on hardy plank in one of my properties, and that is a completely different look. But if that's a way, and I know somebody's going to say, "Oh my gosh, you're taking away the incongruous with." You talk about in the year 350 anniversary, and our buildings in the center of town are all shingled, but this is a way maybe we could spend some money, save some money, and help pay for the increase in materials in the library, or the interval house, or other stuff. And that's what I think we should be thinking about.
I like the way you're thinking, Chris.
You still, so are you, I guess, I don't want to speak out of turn, but are you saying deferring these? Because they really should be.
I'm not saying deferring. Do we bite the bullet and spend $80,000 this year to fix this problem permanently, so we don't ever hear about it again? Or are we gonna, because we're gonna be arguing in 4 years from, whoever's sitting up here in 4 years is gonna have to find $40,000 to paint those
We don't
buildings
have the
again.
numbers. You know how things.
Yeah, we don't know the numbers.
You know how, I mean, you know how things go around here with design review and everything like that. It would probably take us 2 years to decide what kind of shingles and what color to paint the building.
Okay, so maybe I sit here and approve your $40,000, but we immediately get on a project that 4 years from now, we're ahead of the game and we're not painting them again, we're reshingling them. So the next board can use that money for something else.
So moved.
We would
I think that would be a
we would
smart
happily
plan.
accept that challenge.
I think that'd be a smart plan.
Yes.
Great.
Eric, I just have a question before we kind of finish or sum up. Just going through this, Sean, I'm not sure that I agree with like the playscape, because we talked about safe.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would not put 2 police cruisers below.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Agreed.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, it's a great point. Great point.
Okay.
And the earlier point about the bleachers, Tom, if the earlier point about the bleachers, if our playscapes are like detrimentally unsafe, let's close the park.
Close it.
Like the one at Town Forest, you're taking that out.
We're taking those pieces, the small pieces of equipment. We're gonna-
Because that's a massive hazard.
And sadly, if that's what has to happen here, I think we have to put the police cruisers above that, the plow truck above that. So there's just some items here.
So we're clearly gonna have to do this again Wednesday. Can you guys just put numbers on these from a staff standpoint for us?
Sure, so-
To the gist of what we talked about?
Again, so for the safety items with that particular playscape, the playscape that we mentioned at West Mountain, the park and open space master plan did recommend that essentially if we don't replace that, then it needs to just come out.
Yes.
So that was why for that particular one, we moved that into the category of safety. So again, that was in a sense be a service reduction in that if we pull out that particular playscape and don't replace it, that will be a service reduction to that neighborhood because they will no longer have a playscape.
It's okay, Eric.
I'm not going to be able to go home.
It's just his neighborhood.
But let's, I mean, I'm speaking, I'm not
But we
thinking.
will have police cruisers, okay?
Sorry. No, in my mind, it's incongruous to live next to those items.
It should go down the list in priority.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, the 3 police cruisers that are listed under safety are the actual cruisers.
Yeah.
Chief,
The other
correct
2
me
are the
if I'm wrong,
Tahoes,
but the
right?
2 supervisor cruisers.
Or the Tahoes.
Or the Tahoes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Those
that's
should
what-
move up to underneath the other ones. But, well, they're private duty funds.
Yeah,
so we don't have
it's
to
out
worry
of a
about it.
different pot.
It's not funded
Right.
in the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Just looking at
Yeah.
that, so it doesn't.
Yeah, I was looking at
Just
ours,
priority.
from whatever our priority is from the cash side, assuming if we start monkeying around with the cash side, then we need to look at what's private duty, what's everything else, and go there, but we can't assume what that's gonna be right now. Maria, is that fair though? Because, I mean, we could spend all night on this, and you guys are the experts. You've heard the gist of what we're all talking about, I
Yeah.
think.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Just in the interest of time, I just want to think, I know we're going to be coming back on Wednesday, so is there anything quick that we wanted to cover tonight, or should we think about adjourning?
It's up to you. I mean, we can keep going if you want to try to move through some of the other items, or if folks feel comfortable coming back Wednesday.
Can I just ask, my only account I can ever find are the road and drainage supplies, which I promised Tom Roy I wouldn't cut those, but if we are gonna
in
go find.
operating or
Yeah,
in
if we're gonna go find 15 grand for all these nonprofits, we're either going up on our recommendation, or it's gotta come from somewhere.
Where? What?
Road and drainage. And I'm not suggesting we cut it. but-
Drainage is that it costs us more in the long run, right?
Yeah, but we're paving less roads now, we should be saving money in salt, can we go back and make sure that that number is right?
Okay.
I'm not challenging it. And then also, I would really love to see Lisa's electricity flat, because we're gonna put the temperature up 1 and 10,000 for materials in her budget as well.
Those are the operating?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would love to see that, because I think the library is long overdue for some more materials, I agree.
Well,
But I think
thought
we
already
can.
pushed that forward.
We haven't talked about the service improvement.
We can talk about the service
we have
improvement.
not.
I'm taking, what I was suggesting is to expedite taking it off from a service improvement standpoint and part of the operating, because I'm confident in Mr. Roy's ability to manage our electricity. Is that fair?
We should have, we should have the electricity analysis, the more in-depth analysis, hopefully completed by tomorrow. But again, part of that is also being
73,
driven
it'll be
by our
fine.
actual spend, so,
Everybody's cold when they go.
yeah.
73. Oh, by the way, is it the heating coils too? Because didn't we put heating coils on the building on the outside to melt the ice? Is that part of what's driving? Yeah. Is that part of what's driving?
I don't know. I think we'll have to wait for Tom's analysis.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking about that. I forgot.
I have a general question.
There too.
Since Sean's asked a lot of questions, I'm asking her
No, not
question.
85,
This is
35.
just general, because I don't know where we're going next.
Oh, yeah.
So the items that you have, like the deputy chief, that was a heavy need, right?
Right.
And those other items, they're not included in the numbers, they're included as an asterisk.
We have stuff coming up on that.
Okay,
That
because
might-
that would bump the mill.
Yeah,
rate in.
yes, but, okay, is it okay for me just to recap?
Just,
capital
is there a reason they're separate, I guess?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Service improvements.
Yes. So if I can just quickly recap capital and CNR. So again, we have those bonding projects prioritized. What I think I was hearing is that this board was comfortable with staff's recommendation at this point, at least regarding the funding model for capital, and that the safety items, with the exception of the playground, would be of a higher priority to you than the other items. Is that sort of a good consensus of that? Okay, great. So let's go ahead and, do you want to move on to the next item?
Sure.
Okay. Great, so these are the discussion items that we had for tonight, which one of them was the possible use of fund balance for ongoing and routine capital needs. We've tackled that. So we will go to the next slide, which is the Board of Finance guidance. Oh, I'm sorry, just quickly. And right, I believe we talked about this during the release of my budget, but when we were looking at capacity for potentially taking that $725,000 transfer out of fund balance, even doing that, our 2021 projected is 16.4%. So you'll recall that comparable AAA communities in Connecticut right now are at around 15.5%. And so even with that proposed transfer, we're still at about a full percentage higher than that target for the AAA bond rating, which is great. So that was part of the decision and recommending to you that transfer.
Great.
Okay, great, thanks, Amy. We can go to the next one. So the next policy question was the Board of Finance guidance. So they had suggested a 2.5% expenditure increase guidance and a 2% mill rate increase guidance. Right now, the proposed managers and superintendent's budget, we meet the mill rate guidance because we're at a 0.01 mill increase. However, the expenditure guidance, we are in excess of that. You'll recall about 45% of the town's increase was our ARC for our pension requirement. And so to meet the 2.5% expenditure target, we would need to further reduce the operating budget by about $235,000. So given sort of the overall context of the budget, how do folks feel about, do you want to go in and try to cut the budget to meet that expenditure guidance, or just sort of move forward at this point?
Remind me what the percentages were going in on the pension?
So 45% of our 3.5% increase was due just to our ARC requirement for our pension contribution.
Right, that assumes 6.5,
6.75.
So we're not going down to their guidance of 6.5 either.
Right, we have a
And
slide
they wanted
coming up on
that in
that.
the 2.5, so we've got a twofold problem here.
Yep.
Right.
So what's if we followed their guidance, what would the number be? Not suggesting
Oh,
we
for
would.
pension? Yep, we've got, so this was one of the other policies. Yeah, no, that's all right. This is one of our other policy questions for tonight. So we have proposed a few different scenarios that we could incorporate. And on the advice of our actuaries, they had said that if we were to move forward with updating any of our interest rate or pension OPEB assumptions, that they recommend that we would tackle the mortality table first, as opposed to the interest rate and further reducing it. You know, they also suggested that we don't need to be aggressive, we don't need to tackle this all in 1 year. I would concur with that advice of our actuaries. There's ways we can phase this in. Our pension, liabilities are certainly not in a crisis position. So there are ways we could, smooth this in over time so it doesn't have as much of a mill rate increase for folks. Again, so right now what's included in the budget is the recommended ARC. And then also based on what we had available at the time of preparing this, the OPEB for the town contribution does include the updated mortality table. So that $22,000 that's highlighted was part of my proposed budget. If we were to move forward with updating the mortality table assumptions, we would end up with about a 0.11 mill rate increase. That translates to about $23 a year for the median home. Moving across, if we were to do the interest rate in a couple of chunks, so if we were to reduce the interest rate to 6.625, that is $33 the median home impact, or mill rate impact of 0.16. If we were to do the mortality table and reduce the interest rate to 6.5%, just taking that action is a 0.36 mill rate increase and just under $80 a year for our median valued home. So again, to try to take on the mortality table and reducing the interest rate all the way down to 6.5 in 1 year is about an $80 impact to our median valued home. Again, my recommendation would be that if we want to start incorporating some of these changes, is that we do it gradually, and we do it gradually over time to make that less of a an impact, and that would help, smooth the mill rate by incorporating these assumptions over time. But yeah, I mean, just again, be realistic. I know that Matt and I think we're pretty candid at Tri-Board that, knowing for us, for example, that our fixed costs we estimated during Tri-Board were probably about 3.3%. They came out at 3.5. So knowing what our fixed costs were and then trying to tackle, a mill rate of, what came out to be 0.36 mills, trying to tackle this with a fixed cost and still meet the 2.5% Board of Finance guidance puts us in a position of having to cut municipal services.
So there's $1 million delta between what's recommended and what the Board of Finance wanted, of which we're 700,000 of.
Yeah.
So we got to come up with 700,000 plus the 200 we're heavy.
If we were to do this.
To meet the guidance and do this based on the Tri-Board recommendation.
Correct.
I think what I struggle with those that are, their guidance doesn't completely jive with what the actuaries say we should be doing at the moment.
It also doesn't jive with the assumption of the grand list. Right. The grand list came in.
That's true.
Grand list came in more favorably, and I would hope that the guidance would have been different had
they known that.
Had they known that as well. I mean, there was a whole half-point difference, was there not? Which is that's a big difference.
Yeah. Amy, was there anything else on the tables or the assumption rates that you wanted to add to?
No, I think you covered it.
So, does that include 100
I know.
I'm sorry, where's my book? Does that include the 100% of the outside agency requests? 100% of their requests, or no?
This is just the pension.
This is just the impact.
Yeah, but I'm saying what it would, okay.
So add that 0.11 to what we saw on the 0.03, so the actual increase would be 0.14, right, Amy?
Right, if we were to do the mortality tables, correct, that 0.11 would get added to the 0.01, so now we're at, 0.112 if we were to implement mortality tables.
So then what is the implication, the home implication then?
Sure, so that would go from $3 under the current budget to, I believe it's 29 total? Or is it 26 total? If we were to do the mortality table, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading it from here. Thank you. So it would be 23 plus 3, so a total of 26 for the year.
And if we funded the outside agencies, that's less than $1.
Yes.
Yeah, correct.
Negligible.
And then, just your comments, just so we can understand, when you said the phased approach, is that taking, phasing the increase, or phasing it in the sense of moving it to these different assumptions?
Sure.
What does phasing mean?
Yeah, so meaning that we could implement these different assumption changes in multiple years. So for example, perhaps in the upcoming year, we could do some or all of the mortality table changes, and then that's tackled. And then perhaps in the next year, we go to 6.625 for an interest rate, like that's our goal, and we phase that in that way. And then, maybe in year 3, we're going to an interest rate of 6.5%. So again, instead of trying to just tackle this all in 1 year, trying to do it over, 3 to 4 years, depending on if you wanted to do all of the mortality table now or just some of the mortality table for the upcoming year. Or we could do nothing and just do the ARC and continue, along how we're doing. Another piece to this, sorry not to add a layer of complication, and this will, I think, be some work of the Retirement Plan Subcommittee the upcoming year, is our amortization schedule is quite aggressive currently, and that's, another conversation that we can have about, potentially changing that to, again, help with some of the required contributions, but that's sort of a big picture conversation work for the Retirement Plan Subcommittee in the upcoming year.
Fun stuff right there. Amortization schedules.
Yeah, but I would say in terms of focusing now, upcoming budget, really thinking about, do we just want to take care of the ARC, or do we want to think about starting to phase in some of these changes to our pension assumptions?
I mean, there's a couple ways to look at this, right? I mean, the one is, I love the budget you presented, it makes a lot of sense. But then when I step back and look at what's coming
Yes.
and where we are this year, is it better to pop in .36 this year because we're so low versus next year or the year after
Yeah.
where there's going to be more pressure from other things?
Because at that time, how much harder
Yeah.
will this, how much larger will the
Right.
pig be that the snake is trying to swallow?
I mean, it's,
you know?
yeah, it's the problem. We're getting to a number. It's how fast do we get to it?
We're talking about increasing the mill rate this year already.
Barely. I mean, it's negligible.
Okay.
With a strategic,
Right, but follow me.
reasoning.
Then we talk facilities master plan, and then we talk school.
Oh, yeah.
So we already know there's going to be an impact next year. So
Next 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, for
I think we
for
have to be-
foreseeable future.
Yep.
I think we have to be very cautious.
We do. The challenge with this one though, Jackie, is if we're wrong on the interest rate, and we
Yep.
look more and more wrong every day, as you know, it's gonna cost us more in the future if we're not careful, right?
This is a have to do. I mean, we got to get there. It's just a matter of
It
when.
is, but our
Just,
performance
right,
has been,
how quickly?
our performance has been this good over the last 15 years, right? So we're not at 10 and we're performing at 6. We've been at, what, mid-7s, I think?
Yeah, like 7 to 10 some years, and then they're recommending we go down to 6.5, but we haven't even been close to 6.5 on performance.
No, so the
Now,
plan's not-
granted-
There's no imminent reason we have to do this now.
According to our advisors, no. According to Amy, no. But according to retirement subcommittee and some folks on there, yes. That's the challenge, right? We've got a difference of opinions here.
That's why I'm in favor of something between the far right and the far left.
I struggle with the concept of the difference of opinion. What I want to be doing is doing something that, it's like, not, I hope somebody doesn't tell me, well, your truth is different than my truth, but I hope that we do something that is in line with what the experts are telling us to do versus me. You know, that's what I want to make sure that that's.
So can I summarize something, and you tell me if this is an accurate statement? The house is not on fire. A good practice, the consensus is that we should get closer to the 6.5%, but we can phase that in.
Correct. And our actuaries have recommended if we were to do something first,
Yeah.
to do the mortality
Okay.
tables first.
Okay, so that's the experts telling us to do something, that if you're going to, right, don't make a mistake on this.
Is there any exposure on the bond side though, as municipalities do move to the 6.5? Because there was grumblings that was.
We're in such a good position compared to other
Okay.
towns in Connecticut that even if we do nothing, that there would be no impact. In my opinion, doing nothing would be entirely fiscally responsible. We should be doing something to show progress towards that 6.5 because
Yeah.
it's what the professionals that do this every day recommend. And you know, perhaps they saw this coronavirus coming, and you know, all the interest rates going down. I mean, you never know. Like they take their information from somewhere to make their projections, even though our past performance has not been anywhere near 6.5. But I mean, they look at what we're invested in and they get 6.5 somewhere. So
Yep.
I don't want to take that away from them.
So we shouldn't ignore it, but we don't need to press the gas pedal. to get
Right.
there.
Exactly.
It's a good summary.
We're gonna get flack on that the moment we go up there. But I think
Okay, well,
you
I
guys
don't
have got a
mind.
well-prepared story though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are folks wanting to perhaps plug into the chart, say, the remainder of the updated mortality table and see what that looks like in terms of a mill rate impact, to show some progress, but not the whole
That would be
whole
my
thing?
preference.
Sure.
Okay, so if we could
Yeah, sure,
do
yes.
mortality table, that'd be great.
Yeah, because we moved from 7 to 6.75, what, last year? Year before?
Last year.
Last year was the conversation.
Yeah.
So we've been moving.
Yeah.
Then we're making progress.
And that was with some intensive conversations with the Board of Finance around that. And that was something that was important from on their side of the discussion.
Take it very seriously.
Yeah.
We're not taking it any less seriously than they are in this. But again, we're looking at how to manage the whole thing too, and
One piece of it.
this is what our professionals tell us.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think that just leaves us, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, with the service improvements. So what we can do, if you want to talk about those quickly, and then we can go to the Excel spreadsheet, and you can
Sure.
see the potential
Do it.
mill rate impact
Do
based
it.
on what we've talked about.
Sure.
Great. So again, these were the 4 service improvements that, I felt sort of rose to the top for all organizational requests. I felt if we were to fund service improvements, these are the ones that I would recommend we proceed with. If we were to do all 4 of these service improvements, that would add about I believe it was 0.1 mils to the mill rate, or it was about $26 a year to the median valued home. And again, that is if we were to do all 4. So we can either take it sort of topic by topic if you'd like, or if, I don't know if that would be easiest.
What's the percentage? That's almost another 2 points on top of our budget though, isn't it? I mean, the 183 alone
yeah, it
is
came up-
a whole point.
Yep, if we were to do, I believe it was a little over 5% if we did all 4 of the service improvements.
I think we need to reframe it. I mean, I don't even see these as improvements. I mean, some of these are service restorations.
Yeah.
And others are things we need to do because we're a growing town.
Well, for great example, if we're about to talk about the 2.2 million acquisition of open space, and we heard about Sean's trees in the Parks and Rec, and we've heard about the service, the reduction of complement in 2008. I mean, you're about to take on more in cost, in effort, in need, and so that's an example right there of building into what you're about to spend money on. Now, we could say, well, then don't spend the 2.2 and you want to spend the 95. Not saying that, but these are not improvements. I think these are keeping pace. Much of this is keeping pace. I mean, Lisa's point to it. I mean, the library materials for me, not because I'm on the library board and I'm learning at a very fast curve, trying to do this on my own. But it kind of goes back to. It's not the parallel to the discussion that we had earlier, but we're so far behind in what some of our peers are doing, that to me, this is just trying to pull current. And people could say, well, maybe we're doing a better job with less and people don't want the materials, but we're so far behind.
I agree.
And the library is such a part of the fabric of this community.
But these items are not in our budget.
No.
Right.
No.
Right.
This is adding to the.
So this
Double
would,
the
right,
increase.
so if we were to make the policy decisions to move forward with, again, all 4 of these, it would add about $26 a year to the median valued home, and it would have about a 0.1 mill rate impact.
Why are these not?
Yeah, that's what I asked before.
Sure.
using-
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It's a great question. So,
New.
Great question from you folks. So, generally what I've done the last few years is prepare a current services budget for you. So these are our current municipal services, and this is what it takes just to
Meet those
maintain
costs.
what we have. If we want to add positions, add a new program, really looking at that as more of a policy decision of the board in terms of we want to expand services or we want to expand staffing. And that would be an additional cost. So again, sort of packaging those handful of service improvement considerations for the board to talk about.
Even though, again, I keep going back to the chief, just because the deputy chief, why is that a policy improvement? It's a safety improvement for the town to have the police department operate better. So why is that an add-on, I guess, to the overall budget?
So that's how it's viewed.
You know.
We don't currently have that service and we're adding.
So even if it's a needed to run the town overall, it's still a service improvement? And the Board of Selectmen is on the hook for all service improvements? Is that what you're saying? Like, we have to approve all these?
Yes, I mean, that's our.
But they're
that's our
not part of the
response.
town's?
I think I may understand why you're asking that question in the sense, but the way that Maria puts this forward, these are the
Extras.
The front part of this budget is what's known, fixed, already spent. How do you turn the lights on today kind of stuff. even though you could say, well, geez, the chief's request could be lumped back into really how we should really be
Service.
operating this
Yeah.
house already.
Yeah.
But we haven't gotten there yet. Hopefully we're gonna put it in, and next year becomes part of that.
Yeah.
The front part of the budget.
Next year it'll be
Yeah.
part of the house.
Now, I do agree, though, these go from improvements to requirements. I mean, we've done that. With the social services department, we made the case that
Okay.
we need another social
social
worker, and
worker.
we were successful in making that case. Because again, it doesn't matter what we want, it matters what we can make the case for to get funded, and then the voters agree to. So that's where our vetting, we need to make sure, and I'm not arguing with the chief, but not everybody's going to agree that adding a deputy chief makes us safer. That's the evaluation that we need to do up here. And I'm not arguing with the chief, but it's a matter of perspective, because you can walk out of here and say, Simsbury is safe right now. We're not unsafe at this point in time. So there's an argument that is improving the quality of the police department.
Yeah,
Sure.
more effective.
It's just hard.
I agree. I think it makes sense, but there's lots of ways to view it.
It's hard that these are priorities and they all appear to be needs, but they're not in
Yeah.
the budget. Do you know what I mean? So it's really hard to say,
Because they're new.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
but they're, yeah, go ahead.
What I want to, taking Jackie's point going forward, making it mine, no, is that, what I'm hearing up here, though, is like, great optics. This is like fantastic political spin. This is almost like my daughter coming to me and trying to like sell me things in little bits.
Right.
So she puts enough smoke and I can't see the totality of it.
She appreciates you
Right.
sharing that.
She moved from her bedroom last night to the downstairs bedroom, and it seemingly just happened so quick that I couldn't fight it. And my wife said,
Make the point.
My point is that this literally happened
It's
last night.
9:20.
My point is that we talk about that this is a 11-cent increase to the average house tax bill, and $11, and this one is 32, and this one is 71, and this one is 18. And what I don't want to hear is have somebody tune into the TV tonight and just pick up the piece where we're saying it's only $38. I think we need to, when we talk about this, that the consideration of all of these, that it's actually
$100 million,
a $475
Yeah, we can go to that. Do you want to go to the spreadsheet?
So, I mean, that's one, I just want to make sure we should always looking at that in how we revisit this every time we talk about this budget in totality.
Go to the spreadsheet and include the service improvements?
Again, it's fine, guys, but remember, when you make $100,000 and you choose to spend $102,000, that money has to come from somewhere, right? So you either run up your credit card or you pull from savings, but eventually you run out of funding services. So I get it. Everything is a requirement, but everything in life is about choices. And when we've got $100 million to spend, we still have to prioritize what's in and what's out. And if we don't do it, the Board of Finance does it for us, and that's not what they're for. So we need to be very careful that we exercise our role.
That's my concern, is we're talking about increasing the mill rate again, another piece of this, tonight.
Yep.
And we know what's in front of us for the next few years or however many years. So, and I don't think any of those things should necessarily be cut, but is there something else that should be? So
We can lower the quality of our roads, there's things we can do, but it's about the priorities of service. So, yeah, yes, we can cut, we can lower our pension contributions, there's a lot of things we can do, but a lot of them are irresponsible.
I think there's a counter, so Jackie, I don't disagree with the crux of your argument.
Yeah, you're right.
But I think that there is an argument to be made that now is the year to do some of these less sexy things, like make sure we're adequately funding our pensions. Because next year, we're going to be talking about building schools.
Yeah. But we're also talking about,
And that's baking into the budget and making it part of the hard budget moving forward, the fixed budget moving forward.
but we're still talking about increasing our mill rate on a year that we had growth in our grand list. We don't know that we're going to have that next year.
Right. Fair enough.
We don't know that we're going to have the revenue.
Right. We don't know that the insurance fund insurance results are going to come back the way that they did, and we don't know that the rates for interest are going to go where they go, and we don't, you're right, there's a lot of stuff that we're taking
Yeah.
We're spending it just as soon as we got it again.
Yes, and I'm hesitant for that. I'm
And it's
very
the
much
number one
hesitant.
thing you hear from our residents is,
Yep.
Don't increase my taxes.
Yeah, but you get in this chair and all they do is give you new ways to spend money.
No, I see that, I see that.
But we have to be good stewards.
70-30.
It's our responsibility.
It is.
Yeah, so we have two ways to reduce the mill rate, right? We have some fantastic insurance company drop in our lap again, which is never going to happen again, or we cut spending. And we run this pretty leanly. I mean, yeah, we could talk about not getting a bleacher, right? Somebody could say, well, that's again, it's the who's it for, who's a nice to have, but it's not. It's an imperfect position to begin sitting up here talking about these kinds of things. I would like to move forward with what is that for the impact here? Yeah.
Just to recap, the things that you, just for the purposes of this particular chart we're looking at, this included adding the 4 service improvements, implementing the mortality table changes to our pension, and then the outside agency changes were the Chamber of Commerce, increasing that by $2,500 to $7,500, increasing Interval House by $2,000 to $2,500, increasing SCTV by $5,000 to $10,000, increasing the watershed by $397 to $5,248, and increasing Main Street by 5 to 50. So again, that includes the outside agency requests, the mortality table implementation, and the service improvements. I do also want to note we did pick up on one budgeting error on our part. We missed an $800 expense for the town clerk's office, so we would just want to make sure that we
Wow, that throws
corrected
us
that.
really far off today.
An accidental omission of about
Reprint this.
$800.
Really wants her credit card, don't take it away.
Yeah, so I do apologize. We did find one very, very small budgeting
Does this
error.
include the assumption around getting part of the way toward the pension?
Correct, that's the mortality table. is
Mortality
included.
table. Got it. Yep.
Mortality tables for the town plans, it doesn't include the BOE, which is an additional expense if we did the BOE pension at, with the updated mortality tables as well. So just so you know, chances are we're probably gonna end up doing all or nothing related to the pension, so this will increase again.
And then Amy, could you just read for them the mill rate increase under this scenario and the median impact?
Yeah, so the mill rate increase is 0.25 mils, and then the median home impact is $53.
In totality.
That's with everything that we talked?
Yeah. So it would go from $3 to $53.
Yeah, but the other way that people look at it is if they get an $8,000 bill now. Total. That's the median impact. That's how much they pay in totality. It goes from 79.86 to 80.40. That's the part they hate. They don't care about the 53.
That .64 though is significant, is less than inflation.
I'm not arguing with it.
Which is a tenant of one of, we know that we're sort of one of the litmus tests that we're kind of, for the library, Lisa, to put you on speed, did we get the request for materials last year?
No.
I know we went.
This is the first year it's ever made it past the.
Right, okay, so we had our book deposit, we had our book deposit.
Yeah, automatic.
We took care of that, right, okay, make sure. All right, so this is really, this is not, okay, I'm not trying to say.
No. Since I arrived in 2013, so thank you.
Great,
You're welcome.
yeah,
You're welcome.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Go up to our increase, if you could, Amy.
Oh, the percentage increase for the town?
Everybody feel good about that?
What did the Board of Finance want to 2.5
Yeah, with the pension in it.
with the 6.5 pension?
Yeah.
So that's not close, really.
I don't feel good
They
about
also
that.
made that decision not knowing what our
The mill
growth
rate.
would be.
Agreed, so give us a half a point, so we get
For the,
3.
yeah,
And let's pretend they hold us harmless for the pension, so that's 4. We're
Yeah.
still 2.5 or 2.25 points over, even if they held us harmless and they accounted for.
Yeah, I don't think that they would, I mean, knowing that board, great people. Knowing that board, I don't think that they had known that we would be our grand list would be in such a position that they would have said, okay, then go
spend it.
Go
Right.
spend more.
Right.
That's
They're
not,
trying to manage below 40.
I don't know that that's,
Right. I mean, they're,
We should start
they're
with
not
that.
letting the mill rate go above 40, and then we have the next reval, that's gonna become a challenge again.
Yep.
So I have one question. If you were to just add the 6.625 for the retirement, or not the retirement.
The pension?
The pension retirement. What's can you can just throw that in, right? And not to
Yeah, we can add
keep
that.
us here that long. I'm just, because it was only 0.4 or 0.3, 0.03 higher, and then it might give them some satisfaction, or that we're.
Which number do you want?
I was saying, would the mortality rate also go to the 6.625 pension? Because it was like 0.03, 0.04 to the mill rate, so I just wanted to see dollar-wise.
Yep.
I didn't know if this was a
That's fair.
hard thing to do or a little thing to do.
For Amy, it's easy.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I agree.
Boom, done, $61.
And what was it before? 40?
53.
53?
Oh, 53.
that's for the more aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd look at it.
But to Sean's
What would we
point,
do to get closer? I'm sorry, Jack.
no, that's exactly what I was getting at.
Well, we would take out all the service improvements.
I don't think that's responsible. I know you're not suggesting that, but
I'm
I
just
don't,
saying,
it doesn't feel
The
responsible.
outside
would
agency
that get us
requests
there?
aren't really they're not, excuse me.
It's not gonna make
No,
a
they're
difference.
not, they're
No,
nominal.
those are nominal.
Maria, your budget came in at what?
It was $3 increase or 0.01 to maintain current services.
No, the actual increase
What
year
was
over
the-
year.
3.55.
3.55, so we were a point heavy. So again, let's factor in that
Okay.
the mill
I
rate,
just-
the grand list growth got us some of that, so we'd be equivalent with them over a half a point increase. It nets out with the Board of Ed, that would probably go through.
I will say also one policy directive that came out of Tri-Board, and I'm still relatively new here, but my understanding is that in the past, the Board of Finance hadn't included pension assumption rate changes into factoring in like what the town's overall increase would be, that they sort of did that separately and
Correct.
I think they used the term hold the town harmless. So that was one piece that was different this year, is they were saying, oh no, we want you to try to include that in your increase as well.
Correct.
So I just started one piece of information I thought that was helpful to.
Yeah, whenever they've made a policy decision for the finances of the town, they have not held either board accountable for it.
Okay.
Because it's been their decision, overarching is the fiscal authority for the town, which we've appreciated.
Yeah.
And did the Board of Ed meet the 6.5, or did they?
They didn't include 6.5 in their budget.
I mean, 6.5, I'm like losing my numbers.
But
Yeah.
their spending's at
just the
2,
arc.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Their spending is at 2, right?
I think so.
About 2.1?
Okay.
Okay.
So the reality, though, we can be done for tonight after this. The reality is, the Board of Finance has line item authority over our board, not the Board of Ed. So the Board of
It's
Ed
gonna
gets.
come out of us.
Well, they'll give the Board of Ed a number, and they can decide which lines they want it from us. So the question is, I'm not suggesting we don't send up the budget we feel good about, but we need to be ready to pivot on that, because we don't get what we ask for. Nor should be, because they're they're supposed to hold us accountable, we have to have a discussion. We need to be prepared to not have the ability to make those decisions if we send it up. They don't have to let us come back and review it. They can just line item it.
Meaning they just.
They can change whatever they want. The charter says they can do it.
You mean in the sense that they could just change one of those cells and say, you figure the math out to back into
They can
this."
change, no, they can change any line item in this book, Chris. They have the authority to change any line item they want. They do not have that power over the Board of Ed. So my concern is, they look at the chief's budget and they say, sorry, no deputy chief, and they change the officer numbers, or they change whatever they change impacts the library hours. We're the ones that are supposed to be making those decisions. We have the background, the information, we work with the department heads. I don't ever want to cede that authority to that board and let them make those decisions, because they don't have the same access of information that we do.
Yeah, but
How do we undo that?
but wouldn't
Send out the
that,
budget they want, is one way to do it.
By getting closer to some of their asks.
That's one way to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a requirement, but I'm just saying, understand, if we send this up, do it with our eyes wide open. There are repercussions to doing so.
and that's why it falls upon us to create the narrative as best as we can as to why these.
Don't disagree.
That line item happens when we don't have we don't have an answer, or the answer is incongruous with what they're
They can do whatever they
they're
want.
chartered with.
They don't have to have a reason.
Right, but I don't think it would happen without,
Well, to Sean's point, we
yes, it can happen.
either send a budget that's closer to what they're,
We should always send a budget we feel good about, but we need to understand what happens when we send it up there.
yeah.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
The thing that strikes me about this budget that I appreciate is it is really maintaining the things that we have already invested in town. And even the things we're calling service improvements are not improvements. I really see these as maintenance items and things that we have to do. And I don't report to the Board of Finance, I report to the voters, and I feel really good defending this budget to the voters.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do too. But remember, it doesn't go straight to the voters. We have to answer to them on the budget. Whether we want to or not, we have to answer to them.
Yep.
I agree with you. I'm not saying do it because of them, but this is how our government is set up.
Yeah.
Right.
So if the Board of Finance,
We
Okay.
still have other agenda items.
let's
Do
call
we
it a night.
ignore them?
I think we should call it a night.
Okay.
Honestly. We've kept these guys here way too late. We're not going to make a decision tonight.
Do you feel that you need additional time and you want to come back on Wednesday? Do you folks?
I'm not prepared to vote tonight.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
If you guys want to, that's fine, but I'm
could
not
do
prepared to
Wednesday.
vote.
That's the Wednesday night.
Okay, fine, let's do one, not
Can't
pushing
go to the
anybody in.
community for care in the implicit bias thing, but this will be more fun.
Okay, this will be more fun.
I'm sorry to give everybody in a meeting, but I just.
No, I
personally-
agree, I'm not.
Is there a way
I
that
don't
we
think it's a
could,
good idea to
is
vote.
there a way that we could, we can't change the time of that meeting, can
What time is the meeting?
I was thinking 6.
we? Can we have it at 6:30? Anybody have a problem with that?
They haven't posted it yet, right, so.
Does anybody
I have no issue
personally have
with
a problem with
6:30.
that?
No.
Want to do 6:30?
I'll do it for you.
This is when sports start and they want to be there for the first night of stuff that
Yeah.
they get it. Because otherwise,
We all miss a lot of family
we're
stuff. I
missing
get it.
I'm missing way too much stuff right now. Family stuff. Yeah.
It's always a good idea for everybody to sleep on this, have your
I
conversations.
agree, I think we should wait.
So I'll acquiesce. You give me one more night, you know, you
It
6:30.
will be the same decision, but at least.
We'll also have a
better
Board of
about it.
Finance meeting tomorrow night where we can get a sense of
Yep.
Yes.
what our friends are thinking.
Yep. All right.
One thing before you guys wrap up. Just the remark before about the service improvement and the Parks and Open Space maintainer related to the open space acquisition. That second request that we're asking for is for what you already have.
You already know.
You already know. It has nothing to do with that.
Not at all. I stand corrected. I was just trying to give an example of the fact that you're talking about. Right.
We have to say.
Tom.
He knows my memory. No, Tom already got his service.
It's like I.
I move that.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
For what?
To
Yes.
adjourn.
We had adjourned, we didn't
Second.
approve last week's
Oh, my gosh, there's more meetings.
Derek, oh, we don't
Why
approve the
did-
minutes.
Why did
just
we do
let
it in
them
this
through.
order?
Are we comfortable with the minutes?
Yes.
Oh, we do.
Oh, my God.
Hold on, we're going to do this quickly.
I rescind
there-
my motion to adjourn.
It's to a point one of yours, John, hold on. Is there a motion to increase the number of membership slots on the sustainability team by one membership slot, designated for the Open Space Committee for a total of 9 members, and further to appoint Timothy Walzak to the sustainability team?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good job, Timmy.
And the minutes look good to
They
folks?
look great.
Yes.
Are there any liaison or subcommittee reports?
Not tonight.
Hearing none?
What? No,
not tonight.
I'm not doing anything tonight.
Hearing none.
Communication looked good.
Communication look good?
What communication?
The communication section
Yes,
of the
perfect.
agenda.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.